Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Whew. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
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 Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Deo, Deo.
Baby's got a burger and a chicken and that shit is all go down. Baby's got a burger and a chicken and that shit is all go down. Corrosion to her thighs, erosion of her pride. Baby's got sugar. Baby's got corrosion now. Corrosion now. Baby's got it.
Hello, hello, hello. It is Friday, July 24th. 74 degrees. I know it says 77 down there. 74 where I'm at. Here in Midtown. It's nice. Nicer than it was last week. I'll tell you that for sure. Wait a minute, who am I? There we go. Yeah. So I'll take 74 degrees any day. That would be like living in Hawaii, I would guess, right? You know, isn't it, or one of those places where it's just like 70s all the time, and then like Southern California, although Southern California gets pretty hot too. Never mind. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. What's going on, everybody? We got Laine P in the house. We had Willie Bragg on Wednesday on the Undercurrent. It was great. We bonus Willie, giggity. Because I thought he was just gonna be there for one segment. He said, "Fuck it, and we're gonna be here the whole time." And I said, "All right, cool." And it was great. I appreciate Willie coming on with us. It was a great show. And you'll see the clips. Probably are starting to see some of the clips from that show already. We got Kate in the house. Kate, who's Uncle Chuck? Are you combining people? Are you who's Uncle Chuck? I'm kidding with you. Don't listen to me. Silly. Good to see you. We got Chuck's Intergalactic UFO show Intergalactic. Oh, LeBron James going to the 76ers. Like, bro, isn't he like 50? When's he gonna retire? Jeez. Willie was fun. Oh, you're talking about the show? Hey-oh! I thought he was... Never mind. I said that. That's very highly inappropriate. I'm trying a little something different with the old microphones here. I had a limiter on, and I think it was kind of cutting me off on certain places. Now it might be a little too loud. So let me know if you hear anything unusual. Uncle Chuck is Chuck's UFO show. Who else is an uncle? Oh, I see what you did there. Uncle Chuck. I'll start calling him Uncle Chuck now. Uncle Chuck, you son bitch. Uncle Chuck. Chuck is now Uncle Chuck. Well, who am I? Am I just Warren? I don't want to be just Warren. I want to be cousin. BreakThrough is my home. How dare they? There's no eruption. I know. What's up, Jamar? Good to see you, bud. Yeah, we're going to be talking about that a little later in the show. What's going on with Breakthrough News and a few other news outlets. The old McCarthyism 2.0 rearing its ugly head. I guess that's all the chit chat for now. Kate, everybody's just uncle to you. You just call everybody uncle now. Just say uncle. It's like you're giving up. See what I did there? See? Because it's the thing. All right. Anywho, we should get to some business here. The bad news, of course, as always. Although this is good news if you don't like tropical storms. So just a brief update, wrapping this up. Everything's bigger in Texas except for Tropical Storm Bertha is teeny tiny now as Bertha dissipates over Texas. So Tropical Storm Bertha has come to an end after moving inland across the upper Texas coast, weakening into a trough, which is an elongated area of low pressure that no longer has the organized circulation required to be classified as a tropical cyclone. You still get wind and rain, but it's not like a tropical storm is, which is under 75 miles per hour. I can't remember what the stipulations are for that, but so National Hurricane Center issued its final advisory on Bertha yesterday after the system lost its tropical characteristics over southeast Texas. All tropical storm watches and warnings have been discontinued. Though Bertha is no longer a tropical storm, its remnants will continue to bring pockets of heavy rain across South Texas, which they could probably use down there. My Texas people, let me know. I mean, you probably want rain, but you probably don't want too much rain. An additional 1 to 3 inches of rain is expected, with isolated totals up to 4 inches. The heaviest downpours could still trigger localized flash flooding, especially in urban areas and other locations with poor drainage, so please be aware of that. Along the Gulf Coast, elevated water levels may persist through the next high tide cycle before gradually subsiding. Swells generated by Bertha will also continue to create dangerous surf and life-threatening rip currents along portions of the Louisiana and Texas coast through tonight. Bertha developed over the northern Gulf before tracking west along the Gulf Coast, bringing tropical storm force winds, periods of heavy rain, minor coastal flooding, and dangerous beach conditions from the Florida Panhandle to Texas. While the storm remained relatively weak, its broad wind field spread impacts across hundreds of miles of coastline as it moved towards the upper Texas coast. So Bertha made landfall twice along the Gulf Coast, once in Louisiana, east of New Orleans, and once 70 miles northeast of Galveston near the Texas-Louisiana border. So good news there. That's probably the only good news you're going to get today. Sorry. I don't mean to be that guy. Hold on a second. I got to get gross. But what was odd about Bertha was that it formed over the Gulf, right? Now, these tropical storms usually form out in the Atlantic, right? Usually off the coast of Africa, and then they make their way westward across the Atlantic and gain strength. And by the time they get to the Caribbean, it's usually pretty potent, major, especially with the heating of the seas going on. So to see one already just form in the Gulf, you know, the Gulf is pretty hot already, and that's what it is. Hot moisture that usually mixes with some sort of cool air, and we've been having some significant cooler air, relatively speaking, the last few days, so that's probably how it got to where it is. But I'm no meteorologist, so don't hold me to that. I just look at weather maps, and that's it. But good news for Texas, that's good. But again, just be aware of those flash floods that may occur too. So, all right, so there was your good news for the day. Have a good day, everybody. We'll see you. Here comes the bad news. When you can all right. So global tariffs, the next phase going into effect. As if your prices weren't high enough. Trump's next phase of global tariffs goes into effect, affecting countries that provide 99.4% of U.S. imports. That kind of reminds me of Dove soap. They said 99.4% pure. Well, this is pure bullshit. Tariff rates of up to 12.5% replace the U.S. expiring global tariffs at midnight. This guy drinking a coffee. Who are these people? I don't care. Don't care. The Trump administration imposed the replacement 10% global tariffs that expired at midnight on Thursday. The suite of new duties, which Trump's team hopes will be permanent, went immediately into effect at 12:01 a.m. Eastern today, levying rates of 10% to 12.5% on America's top trading partners. Trump's trade office said in a fact sheet on Thursday that this order will apply to 60 of the top U.S. trade partners and cover 99.4% of U.S. imports. These duties will be imposed under Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974 and are coming into force at the end of a months-long investigation focused on the issue of forced labor. A senior administration official previewed this week's action on Thursday by calling it the most sweeping international labor rights action the U.S. has ever taken, while downplaying the notion that this was done simply to replace the expiring tariffs. We are implementing this at this moment, really to avoid complexity, the official said, noting that steady tariff rates would be better for businesses. Yeah, better for businesses, but not for you and me, that kind of thing. Damn it. The new tariffs impose a 12.5% rate on trading partners from China to Australia to Egypt, according to the formal Federal Register notice. Other economies, including the European Union, Indonesia, and Mexico, received a 10% rate. The new tariffs also provide a series of exemptions for goods in transit, as well as for goods subject to other trade agreements and tariff authorities. So that means the ones that are already on the ships heading this way will not be affected. They'll be under the old system. Kill your egregores. Look at you, early. Well, you couldn't sleep? Good to see you, bud. Hope you're doing well. Anybody else sneak in here? Oh, CBC voter, what's up? I'm sorry, I forgot to mention you. I apologize, my friend. Good to see you as well. So goods already subject to separate national security tariffs, notably steel and aluminum, as our English friends like to call it, will not see a doubling up of tariffs, and goods exempted from duties by the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement. That's the USMCA. It's fun to stay there. The USMCA. It's fun to stay at the U. Will remain largely tariff-free. Working in hot and humid Friday. I don't want that humidity. No, sir. Specific goods were also exempted under these new duties to avoid economic turmoil in the U.S. These include big ticket items like oil and natural gas, as well as smaller ticket items that aren't produced in the U.S., like cork from Europe. The formal notice includes hundreds of pages of exemptions. I wonder why we don't make cork. The United States doesn't make cork? That's wild. Thursday's announcement is the latest twist in the president's attempt to reimpose tariffs after the Supreme Court struck down his blanket tariffs in February. It comes during a busy week in trade policy that has also seen the president threaten 50% tariffs on a variety of Canadian goods and 100% tariffs on generic drugs beginning in 2028. You thought you thought drugs were pricey before. Drugs. I want some drugs right now, but not the prescription kind. I'd rather. Earlier this week, U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer told lawmakers during a congressional hearing that Trump still believes trade issues constitute a national emergency for the U.S. Our policy remains the same, Greer told lawmakers. The specific authorities this administration is using have changed, but the trade strategy has not. Thursday's move makes these so-called Section 301 duties a long-standing authority used by Trump and former President Sleepy Joe Biden that gives the president wide latitude to impose tariffs if his team decides that U.S. commerce is restricted. the centerpiece of Trump's tariff authority for the remainder of his term. There's some scary guy there. Oh, that's Jameson Greer. So, I think of Jameson, I think about that Irish whiskey. Whiskey. These duties replace the current 10% tariffs imposed by the Trump administration in February under a different authority, Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974. Those tariffs were imposed after the Supreme Court struck down Trump's blanket tariffs but carried a 150-day expiration date. Thursday's announcement largely tracks the initial findings of the investigation first reported by the administration in June, which included similar recommendations for a mix of 10% tariffs on some countries and 12.5% tariffs on others. But some countries did see their tariff rates change since those findings were released. India moved from a 12.5% rate to 10% because of what the White House viewed as positive steps from that nation on the broad labor issues. The bottom line for many importers is that come today, their tariff rates won't be dramatically different. A recent reading of the U.S. overall effective tariff rate from the Yale Budget Lab found an 11.8% rate across the U.S. economy, with these new duties expected to bring that rate up a percentage point or two. Still, Thursday's announcement is not expected to be the end of Trump's new tariffs. The U.S. is expected to push rates up further later this year as Trump and his team finalize an investigation into excess structural capacity, focusing on goods from China, the EU, and 16 other trading partners or companies. That investigation continues and is on pace to reach its conclusion in the months ahead. In an analysis this week ahead of Thursday's announcement, Simon McAdam of Capital Economics predicted that these coming excess capacity tariffs, quote, serve as top-up tariffs to return overall U.S. tariff levels to those in place before the Supreme Court's ruling in February. The senior administration official who briefed reporters on Thursday described the president as eager to maximize tariffs for the remainder of his time in office, saying Trump's message was, "I only have 2.5 years left. We need to deal with these unfair trade practices. Or maybe I have more than 2.5 years, because sometimes I feel pretty and I just want to stick around a longer, because I like to just hang out. I'm building the ballroom, by the way, that's going to have the super bunker under it, because when those rocks fall from the sky, I'm going to be protected and you're not. And well, you should have been president. Sorry." That's paraphrasing. We soaked a cork. Got many cork soakers in D.C. Yo, cork soaker. The Johnny Dangerously reference. So what's going, they stole Maduro from Venezuela, right? They took him and his wife, brought him to the United States. Still haven't had a trial. You would think, oh, they probably had a trial, right? No, not yet, but apparently one is coming. Maduro's defense challenges U.S. case's trial set for 2027. People there. A U.S. federal judge on Wednesday set June 1st, 2027 as the trial date for abducted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, in a case they reject as politically motivated, while their defense team vowed to challenge the charges and seek dismissal, arguing that Maduro is protected by immunity as the leader of a sovereign state. Which is funny, right? A little sidebar here. Mamdani talks about arresting Benjamin Netanyahu, and they say, oh, well, you can't do that. He's got diplomatic immunity. The United States literally went into another country and kidnapped their leader and brought him to the United States and arrested him. Rules for thee. Maduro and Flores, dressed in beige prison uniforms, appeared for a roughly 20-minute hearing at Manhattan Federal Court before U.S. District Judge Alvin Hellerstein. Alvin! In one of the most significant cases in recent U.S. history. U.S. Special Forces abducted Maduro, they kidnapped him, and his wife at their residence in Caracas during a nighttime aggression on January 3rd, ordered by Trumpy. They were transported to New York, where they had previously been indicted on allegations that they used their positions in Venezuela's oil-rich government to help facilitate cocaine shipments. Both have pleaded not guilty. Along with setting the trial date, Hellerstein established September 2nd as the deadline for Maduro's first set of legal motions seeking dismissal of the charges. The judge also scheduled a November 17th hearing to consider arguments related to those motions. Defense lawyer Barry Pollock told the court that he intends to seek dismissal based on claims of immunity. Maduro is facing 4 felony charges brought by U.S. prosecutors, including allegations of narco-terrorism conspiracy and cocaine importation conspiracy. If convicted, he could face a life sentence. In a court filing submitted Tuesday night, prosecutors from the Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office and Maduro's defense team both proposed beginning the trial in June next year. The parties all agree that this is a realistic schedule. We don't think it's going to slip, but obviously, if anything comes up, we will inform Your Honor, Pollock told the judge on Wednesday. It remains unclear how long the trial will continue. So much for a speedy and fair trial. Maduro described himself as a prisoner of war during the first U.S. court appearance on January 5th. During Wednesday's hearing, Maduro waved toward a person in the courtroom gallery whose identity was unclear as U.S. Marshals escorted him out of the courtroom. Judge Alvin Hellerstein also set January 11th, 2027 as the deadline for Maduro's defense team to file a second round of legal motions. The filings are expected after prosecutors provide the defense with evidence, including materials that may be classified. Evidence right there. They should probably put that in quotes, because so far they got nothing. During Maduro's January 5th appearance, defense lawyer Barry Pollock indicated that the legal team may challenge the indictment, arguing that Maduro's abduction itself was unlawful. Maduro has repeatedly accused the U.S. of attempting to remove him from power in order to gain greater access to Venezuela's extensive oil reserves. And since he's been out of power, the U.S. has gained greater access to Venezuela's extensive oil reserves. Funny how that works. The U.S. stopped recognizing Maduro as Venezuela's legitimate president in 2019. Before the January raid, the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel issued an advisory opinion stating that Trump could legally order the operation to, quote, capture Maduro without congressional authorization because it served an important national interest and did not constitute a war. It's still kidnapping. That's an international crime. Since Maduro's abduction, Venezuela has been governed by his former vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, who has basically just been a doormat for the United States. Who has developed closer relations with the Trump administration. Maduro's most recent court appearance was on March 26 when he attended a hearing concerning the U.S. government's restriction on Venezuela's government paying his legal expenses. The dispute was settled a month later after the U.S. government agreed to modify its financial sanctions on Venezuela, allowing the government to cover the legal fees. Yeah. So, hold on a second. So yeah, like I said, it's rules for thee, not for me, or not for BB. That they say, oh, you can't arrest Netanyahu, who has done way worse than Maduro. Like Maduro or not, that dems the facts that, yeah, you know, he wasn't shooting kids in the head or getting his lackeys to do it. At least not on the scale that the United States, and my Freudian slip was showing. Not on the scale that Israel has been doing it. So, apparently these islands are never going to have sex because if it's the U.S. Virgin Islands, see, because it's the Virgins. So U.S. Virgin Islands faces a second lawsuit over right to bear arms as Florida resident seeks license. Ooh. Gun Owners of America and Gun Owners Foundation, which are suing the government of the U.S. Virgin Islands and its police commissioner as a fight over the Second Amendment deepens. The nonprofits are asking a federal judge to allow non-residents to apply for and be issued licenses to carry concealed handguns in the U.S. territory. The lawsuit filed this week asserted that Florida resident Sean Dale Henry, usually when they provide 3 names, that usually means they killed a president or they're shot up at school. A member of Gun Owners of America and supporter of Gun Owners Foundation, called the U.S. Virgin Islands Police Department multiple times to apply for such a license. Henry has been unable to get the USVI, that's the U.S. Virgin Islands, police to so much as pick up the telephone, the lawsuit states. The fact that the USVI police do not answer their phone makes Henry's need to keep and bear arms for his own self-defense all the more vital. Maybe they don't have phones. Maybe they just have like 2 cans in a string, because, it's the Virgin Islands. They're not that big. No offense to the Virgin Islands, just saying. You're not Texas, okay? So let's just keep it real. A spokesperson for the U.S. territory's government did not immediately respond to a message seeking comment. The lawsuit filed Monday notes that Henry plans to visit the U.S. Virgin Islands at least twice in upcoming months and seeks to bring a concealed gun for self-defense purposes. The Second Amendment doesn't end at the shoreline. Luis Valdez, the U.S. Virgin Islands Outreach Director for Gun Owners of America, said in a statement, Americans don't lose their constitutional rights simply because they travel to a U.S. territory. No, they just lose their constitutional rights when you, question the government, because they go after you. It's the second time the U.S. Virgin Islands government and its police commissioner are sued over the Second Amendment. In December, the U.S. Justice Department sued the U.S. territory, accusing it of obstructing and systematically denying American citizens the right to possess and carry guns. It cited local laws, including that applicants must demonstrate good reason to fear death or great injury to his person or property, and have 2 credible persons vouch for their need of a firearm. At the time, the U.S. Virgin Islands government said it was committed to protecting constitutional rights while maintaining public safety. In a February court filing, the U.S. Virgin Islands accused the U.S. government of coming to court with unclean hands. That's funny. And of employing hundreds of thousands of law enforcement officers it accused of depriving people of their rights, privileges, and immunities secured and protected by the First, Second, Fourth, Fifth, and 14th Amendments. The USA, the United States of America, cannot come to the court with unclean hands and seek to enjoin others while engaging in such blatant, violative, and abusive patterns and practices itself, the filing read. That case is still making its way through court. So, you kind of see that here in the United States, too. There are several cities, like New York, for example, who has a no-gun law, although people do have guns there. I was, as my personal opinion, this isn't news, this is just my personal opinion. I used to be one of those people that thought, oh yeah, we need stricter gun laws. We need to tighten up on those, with the gun fairs and stuff like that. But that's not getting to the root cause of the problem of like mass shootings, which seems to be en vogue, right? You got to get to the root cause of why people are picking up guns and pulling triggers in the first place, right? And a lot of times, more often than not, it's usually some people with some mental health issues. And that's a problem here in the United States because you have to pay for mental health care, and it ain't cheap. Just like regular health care, it ain't cheap. So a lot of times people don't get it, and then the next thing you know, boom, 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 out go the lights. So until we actually talk about and try to address the root cause of these situations where you need guns, crime is tied to the economy too. And when your economy is as shitty as it is now, of course, you're going to have more crime. So maybe if you help people with mental health issues and you fix the economy, guess what? The shootings go way down. You don't really need a gun. Although, the government might come after you, and then that's just a whole other story right there. So the on again, off again love affair that is the U.S.-Iran war, of course, sticks it to everybody, mostly people like us. As Trump's Iran war hits U.S. farmers with $1.4 billion more in diesel fuel costs. So everybody's, people complain about gas prices, which is warranted, of course, but we tend to forget about the diesel prices. It's not just farmers, too. It's truckers who use the diesel, too. Trumpy's illegal war with Iran is putting significant financial stress on U.S. farmers, according to a report issued yesterday by Democrats on the Joint Economic Committee. The report finds that U.S. farmers spent $1.4 billion more on diesel fuel this year, that's collectively, when planting corn, soybeans, wheat, cotton, and rice than they did a year ago, representing a 63% yearly increase. The 6 states to get hit with the biggest yearly percentage increases in diesel costs all voted for Trump in 3 consecutive presidential elections. Florida, 90.6% yearly increase in diesel costs. Alabama with 86.2%. Oklahoma with 85.9%. West Virginia with 85.8%. Kansas with 83.8%. And Indiana with 79.5%. Diesel prices in 2026 hit their peak right in the middle of planting season, and the report estimates that the average farmer spent $1,500 more to refill their farm's on-site fuel tank compared to the same high point during the 2025 planting season. The report notes that it doesn't capture the full extent of economic damage caused the president's unlawful assault on Iran, as its analysis doesn't take into account other war-related increases, such as the increased cost of running diesel generators that power some greenhouses, or the increases at the pump that farmers and truckers face when they drive products to market. The report adds that the economic pain being felt by farmers thanks to Trump's war will soon hit U.S. grocery shoppers, because of course it does. Old trickle down in economics, right? Which trickle down, that started with Reagan. It basically means that you were getting pissed on. Trump's decision to go to war with Iran drove up the cost of diesel fuel just as farmers were set to start their spring planting, the report says. This comes after Trump's tariffs have already significantly increased costs for farmers and made it more difficult for them to plan for the future. These increased costs are likely to further contribute to rising grocery costs. According to data published by the U.S. Energy Information Administration, diesel prices peaked in May this year when they averaged $5.60 per gallon. While prices initially fell after Trump announced a ceasefire agreement with Iran in June, the war's resumption this month has sent them jumping upward again. Up, down, up, down, up, down. We're going to have peace. We're going to war. We're going to have peace. We're going to war. It's the same old bullshit. Data published by the American Automobile Association, that's AAA, on Thursday showed that the average price of diesel in the U.S. is now back up to $5.20 per gallon, an increase of 20 cents from 1 week ago. Despite the economic turmoil caused by his illegal war of choice, Trump has shown little sign of backing off. In an interview with Axios published Thursday, the president said that he was close to making a decision on whether to authorize what he described as a massive attack on Iran that he vowed would be bigger than ever before. It'll be the biggest attack on Iran you've ever seen. It's going to make, like, the 4th of July, you know, with all those fireworks, it's going to make that look just like a little popper that you hit on the concrete, you know, the pop, 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 poppity, pop, 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 pop. Yeah. And they've been bombing Iran for the last 12 nights now, I believe. But Iran isn't, they're not backing down. What's going on here? Huh? Okay. Speaking of Iran, the U.S. House votes to limit Iran war for the first time since ceasefire breakdown. 4 Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives have again joined Democrats in voting to constrain Trump's power to wage war against Iran. The resolution passed yesterday, nearly a week after 3 U.S. military personnel were killed by an Iranian attack on a base in Jordan, with a 214 to 208 vote. Shortly after, another resolution in the U.S. Senate failed to pass by a vote of 47 to 49. We'll tell you about that coming up. Both House and Senate had previously passed a resolution in June that called on Trump to seek congressional approval before launching further attacks. However, because the resolution was passed as a so-called concurrent resolution, it was not sent to Trump's desk. I don't know what that means. Even if the measure had been passed as a joint resolution requiring it to be sent to Trump for approval, the president could veto it. Overriding such a veto requires a 2/3 vote in both chambers, which is probably not going to happen because they're so pretty much divided on this. Still, House Democrats said the latest resolution sends an important message that lawmakers oppose Trump's approach to the war, or at least they trying to make it look like that, which has re-escalated after a ceasefire broke down in early July. Both the U.S. and Iran have traded 12 days of consecutive attacks, with some analysts warning an even greater U.S. escalation may be on the horizon. Trump has repeatedly threatened attacks on civil infrastructure and a possible ground invasion. Yeah. So let's get to the Senate. So the U.S. Senate blocks a resolution limiting Trump's power to wage Iran war. Can you guess the Democrat that sided with blocking this? I bet you can. Diddle-a-dum. 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 Speaking of uncles, Kate, Uncle Fester, U.S. Senate failed to advance the resolution seeking to restrict Trump's authority to conduct military operations against Iran without congressional approval, according to voting results. The measure was defeated in a 47 to 49 vote. A late field goal was missed wide right, despite the U.S. House of Representatives approving the resolution early in the day, as we told you. Democratic Senator and Uncle Fester himself, John Festerman. That's what I'm going to start calling him. I'm going to start calling him Festerman. That creature, that golem, voted against the measure while Republican Senator Susan Collins backed it. Senators Katie Britt, dead Senator Mitch McConnell, Lisa Murkowski, and Rand Paul did not vote. Obviously, Mitch couldn't vote because he was dead. Although, if he had been in Chicago back in like the 50s or something like that, he probably could have done that. Because, they were dead people be voting all the time. The resolution calls for an end to the participation of U.S. armed forces in combat operations against Iran that have not been authorized by Congress. Even if approved by both chambers, as we said, the resolution would not carry the force of law and would require Trump's signature. The vote comes amid renewed tensions between Washington and Tehran following the collapse of a memorandum that had provided for an end to the war, or at least a ceasefire in theory, that the U.S. and Israel began on February 28th. No uncle status for Festerman. No, sir. Yeah, he's been threatening to leave the Democratic Party. I'm like, dude, you already did. What are you threatening? You already did. The U.S. has carried out several rounds of attacks against Iran since July 8th. CENTCOM has said the attacks were launched in response to Iranian actions against commercial vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz. And to be clear, those vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz were violating the MOU, and they said if you're gonna fuck with the MOU, we're gonna fuck with you. Iran has responded by targeting U.S. military positions across West Asia. Trump has also said that the ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran is no longer in effect. The Senate's rejection of the War Powers Resolution came as lawmakers in the House advanced major spending measures that would improve billions of dollars for the U.S. military and intelligence agencies, including funding linked to the war against Iran. The House of Representatives approved a $95 billion budget framework on Wednesday in a narrow 216 to 214 vote, with $73 billion earmarked for the armed forces and intelligence agencies. The measure, which now heads to the Senate, is expected to provide the basis for detailed legislation that House Republicans could seek to pass later this summer. Yeah, so the House and the Senate, this is why you can't Wait a minute. Did I not put that in there? That's wild. Okay. Yeah, okay. So I did mention that. They basically, the House, let me tell you this real quick. So the House passed the NDAA, I believe with even like Section 219 and all the other Israel stuff in there. The Senate blocked it. And so now this will go back to the Senate again, and it'll be interesting to see what will happen in the Senate. That is, if you're interested in the Senate actually doing something for you and me, which we all know that doesn't happen. And it's so wild. I wonder why I didn't have that in there. Okay. It wasn't a long story anyway. That was pretty much the gist of it. So back to the countdown, Casey Kasem. Talking about Iran, Iran rejects U.S. ceasefire proposal delivered by Iraqi Prime Minister. So I believe Pakistan was in the mix before, and now we're seeing Iraq get in here. Iranian officials have rejected a U.S. ceasefire proposal personally delivered to Tehran by the Iraqi Prime Minister, according to the New York Times on today. They always say July. Okay. So on July 24th, today, citing Iranian and Iraqi officials. Trumpy gave the proposal to Iraqi Prime Minister Ali al-Zaidi during their meeting at the White House earlier this month. Tehran reportedly rejected the proposal on Friday after Washington completed its 12th straight night of blowing the hell out of Iran. According to the New York Times report, Iranian and Iraqi officials did not reveal details of the ceasefire proposal. However, Iranian negotiators rejected the proposal because Tehran, quote, is not interested in a temporary deal that left the question of control over the Strait of Hormuz unresolved, according to the Times. In contrast, the Iraqi Prime Minister's office rejected the report alleging that Iran turned down the ceasefire proposal, saying it was entirely unfounded and had no relation to reality. I know a few people like that. No relation to reality. While in Tehran, Zaidi met with Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, Iran's lead negotiator and Speaker of Parliament, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, and Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. I'm nailing those. I've read those so many times. I should know those by now. Although the Ghalibaf is I may be mispronouncing that, but you know. As Meatloaf once sang, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Zaidi was appointed Iraqi Prime Minister in May with the blessing of Trump. However, his political coalition, the Coordination Framework, the CF, also enjoys close relations with Iran, which has exerted strong influence in Iraqi politics since the U.S. invasion in 2003. Foreign Minister Araghchi told state television that Zaidi had shared his views and impressions from his meeting with Trump. Araghchi stressed that no additional mediators are needed as Pakistan is currently engaged in this role. So I guess Pakistan is still in the mix. The problem is not passing messages, he said. The problem is America's outlook, which is illogical, greedy, and controlling. Now, don't hold back. Tell us how you really feel. Illogical, greedy, and controlling the United States? Nah, that never happens. 2 Iranian officials told the New York Times that the Islamic Republic's forces are preparing for Trump to move ahead with his threats to escalate the war, including by striking the capital and additional civilian infrastructure. In response, Iran is prepared to escalate the fight by striking Tel Aviv and asking its allies in Yemen, the Ansarallah-led Yemeni armed forces, the Houthis, the Houthi and the blow-up fish, you know what I'm saying? They'll blow your fish up. To close the strategic Bab al-Mandab Strait at the entrance of the Red Sea. And I believe we do have do we have that? Is that coming up? Okay. Yeah, we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. Iranian negotiators are skeptical of U.S. peace proposals, you think? As Washington and Tel Aviv have repeatedly initiated surprise wars on Iran amid seemingly productive negotiations. The U.S.-Israeli war on Iran began on February 28th, as you know, while Washington and Tehran were engaged in an active Omani-mediated negotiation process in Geneva. An Omani mediator described the talks as positive shortly before the U.S. and Israel launched their bombing campaign against Iran. Womp womp, said Amani. Similarly, in June last year, Israel launched its 12-day war on the Islamic Republic amid an ongoing U.S.-Iran diplomatic process. A sixth round of nuclear talks was canceled following Israel's attack on the country. The U.S. joined the war days later, bombing Iran's nuclear facilities at Natanz, Fordow, and Isfahan. So, yeah. I mean, if I'm Iran, I don't even... Why would you even engage in any peace talks at this point? It's like you're dealing with two of the biggest liars on the planet, right? These are people that bomb you while negotiations are going on, right? Why would you do that? I don't know. Iran seems to have a plan. I don't know how well this plan's going to come to fruition, but you know, I really can't speak for any of the people in Iran too, who are feeling this, like, you know, Iran has a good opportunity here to just take Israel out because they have the weaponry to do it. They've been holding back, and you keep holding back, that's just going to give your enemy more time to regroup and blow you the fuck up because they don't care about you. So I know that sounds kind of hateful. I'm just saying, you know, I'm no war strategist, but I wouldn't negotiate with liars and thieves like that. So, because it's fruitless. It's not going to do any good. So, Iran condemns Kuwait after U.S. attacks launched from Kuwaiti soil. Oh, Kuwait. Kuwait is the home of the little girl who lied about Iraqis coming in there and killing kids in incubators. Remember that? She testified before Congress, and it turns out she was like some sort of like king or prince's daughter or something. She was in on the take. It was all bullshit. In a post on the I guess I gotta start here. Israel's foreign ministry spokesman Ismail Ishmael has sharply criticized Kuwait following U.S. attacks on Iran that Tehran says were launched from Kuwaiti territory, accusing the Persian Gulf state of betraying decades of Iranian goodwill and igniting widespread anger in the Islamic Republic. In a post on the tweeters, Bakai, I'm not quite sure how you say that. See, you brag about being able to nail words, and then you get this one, you're like, Bakai recalled Iran's assistance to Kuwait after the 1991 Persian Gulf War, when Tehran dispatched a team of 47 oil industry experts at the request of the Kuwaiti government to help extinguish burning oil wells left ablaze by retreating Iraqi forces. Remember that? All those oil wells on fire? He said the Iranian specialists successfully brought 28 wells under control in Kuwait's giant Bergen oil field, describing the mission as part of the largest oil well firefighting operation in history. Bakai stressed that the assistance came despite the fact that only 3 years had passed since the end of the Iran-Iraq war, and that the wounds caused by Kuwait's support for Saddam Hussein's regime were still fresh. Referring to the recent U.S. military strikes against Iran, Bakai said Washington's use of Kuwaiti territory to launch attacks had sparked outrage in Tehran. He accused Kuwait of abandoning the principles of good neighborly relations and becoming part of the fire of the wicked directed against our peoples. Iran has always adhered to good neighborliness, Bakai wrote, warning that the smoke of ingratitude and the absence of foresight will blind the eyes of the ungrateful. He concluded his message with a Persian proverb saying, "He who sows thorns does not harvest grapes from them," in an apparent warning about the consequences of Kuwait's action. Yeah, and we've seen what Iran has done to these countries in the Gulf states that are hosting U.S. bases, right? They've tried to limit civilian targets in those areas, but, you know, going after these military bases. But also, a lot of these personnel at these bases have been living in apartments and hotels in civilian areas. And, you know, so it's, talk about human shields. You know, that's straight up human shields right there. delicious. So, after the U.S. using Kuwait as basically its bitch, Iran's eye for an eye strikes on U.S. bases in Kuwait, Jordan, destroy Patriot system and drone facilities. Iran's IRGC carried out multiple attacks on U.S. bases in Kuwait and Jordan as part of the 26th wave of its Nasser 2 operation on July 23rd. That's Nasser 2, Electric Boogaloo, or the Wrath of Khan, in response to the 12th straight day of getting blowed up. The IRGC announced that its forces destroyed a U.S. Special Electronic Warfare Unit at the Udairi base in Kuwait. I'm cursed now. Iranian drones also targeted U.S. troop quarters and 2 helicopter hangars at the base, causing casualties and damaging several helicopters and drones. IRGC forces also hit the Ali al-Salam air base in Kuwait, destroying a Patriot air defense system, a large military equipment depot, and an MQ-9 drone hangar. Satellite images of Ali al-Salam published by the New York Times showed significant damage to the base. In Jordan, Iranian missiles and drones destroyed a THAAD missile defense radar, a Patriot system, and a CRAM radar at a U.S. base, the IRGC stated. The Iranian attacks also set fuel storage facilities, a helicopter equipment warehouse, and a helicopter maintenance hangar on fire. The IRGC said its operations are in response to U.S. military crimes, including a U.S. attack on the Shalamka, I think that's Shalamka. The Shalamka border crossing with Iraq that killed 2 people and injured 11 more as religious pilgrims traveled to the Imam Ali Shrine in Najaf for Arba'in. The statement also condemned the UK for following the U.S. military to launch B-1 bombers attacking Iran from the airbase at Fairford on Wednesday. The IRGC stated that the U.S. had to utilize the British base after its naval ships in the Indian Ocean exhausted their cruise missile supplies. This decision coincided with the arrival of the UK's new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, and his pro-Israel cabinet on Wednesday. Come meet the new boss, same as the old boss. In response to the British move, Iranian Foreign Ministry officials affirmed that any base used to invade Iranian territory is a legitimate target. Any participation in or cooperation with the preparation and execution of these illegal attacks constitutes complicity in the crime of aggression and war crimes. Iranian forces also targeted an oil tanker in the Strait of Hormuz yesterday while forcing 2 other vessels to turn back after seeking to transit a mine-laden route in the strategic waterway. End your interventions, which has produced nothing but an energy crisis and a reduction in agricultural fertilizer supplies for the world, an IRGC statement read. Iran's retaliatory strikes come as the U.S. attacked Iranian territory, again, as we said, for the 12th time, and Trumpy threatened additional attacks on civilian infrastructure. Basically a war crime, if you're going to say that out loud. Or even do it. CENTCOM announced Thursday that its forces struck Iranian military targets, including maritime capabilities, missile and drone storage facilities, coastal surveillance sites, and air defense assets. Meanwhile, Trumpy threatened on social media that anytime Iran shoots at a ship at the Strait of Hormuz, he said yes, whether it be missile, rocket, drone, or any other device or weapon, the United States will bomb and destroy 1 bridge or power plant. Again, war crimes. Iran's foreign minister responded on X by saying our defense doctrine is clear. Eye for an eye. Any aggression against Iran, including our infrastructure, will compel a powerful and decisive response. So, as Glenn Fry said, the heat is on. And I don't know. I guess we've said this till we're in the blue in the face. We don't know when this thing's going to end. And unfortunately, I think something really, really drastic is going to have to happen for any kind of major shift in this. Like somebody using nukes or dirty nuke bombs. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. Why do I say that? Because we're the United States. And we dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan, who are apparently using refrigerators as cooling devices. We'll tell you about that later. But yeah, we set the standard. I mean, yeah, it was back in the 40s, but still, if they let these kooks keep doing this stuff, that's how we're gonna end up. That's probably how we're gonna end up, and it's just gonna be more nightmare for everybody. Meanwhile, the insurance rates are rising as the Hormuz and Bab al-Mandeb shutdown are happening. That's in Yemen. I believe that's the Strait to the Red Sea. We'll get into it. So maritime insurance prices have soared amid, hey, Steve Wolfbrand, what's up? Long time no see. Hope you're doing well, buddy. Maritime insurance prices have soared amid shipping disruptions in the Strait and are also rising for vessels traveling the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, with both waterways critical channels for the global economy now theaters of war. Yemen's Iran-aligned Houthi group announced a blockade of Saudi Arabian ports and ships in the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, which connects the Red Sea to the Indian Ocean earlier this week. This comes on top of ongoing disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz due to the U.S.-Israel war on Iran. Tehran has insisted the ships consulted before trying to pass, while the U.S. has imposed a naval blockade of Iran-linked ships. Blockades for everybody. So the IRGC said yesterday that an explosion set a tanker ablaze in the Strait of Hormuz after it attempted to navigate the southern route off the coast of Oman. In a statement carried by Iranian media, it said 2 other vessels quickly turned back following the explosions. Yeah, so those boats were just, they looked ahead and they're like, boom, 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 boom. They're like, gotta go. All right, let's move it out. Yeah, nothing. Nope. Ain't going that way. The IRGC claimed the 3 ships were acting under U.S. orders and had intended to pass through the mine-laden route south of the Strait of Hormuz. The powerful IRGC Navy emphasizes that the Strait of Hormuz is under our control and that as long as America's evil deeds in the region continue, it's completely closed and no oil tanker will enter or exit the strait, it warned. The strait has been a major bone of contention between the U.S. and Iran. Before the war, an estimated 120 to 140 vessels crossed through the strait each day, roughly half of them oil tankers moving approximately 20 million barrels per day. At the height of the war on Iran, traffic through the waterway collapsed to as few as 2 tankers a day. Stephanie spoke in class today. Hello there, listening while weeding. I'm assuming that's garden weeding and not doing something else with weed. Good to see you. I hope it's nice and cool where you're at, Steph. 10 vessels passed through the strait on Tuesday, down from 16 on Monday, according to data from S&P Global. Marine insurance premiums for ships traversing the strait have surged, with insurance companies reluctant to insure those voyages as they have become more prone to attacks, according to a report published by S&P Global on Wednesday. The report added that war risk insurance costs in the waterway used to constitute between 1% and 3% of a ship's hull value. These have now increased to between 7.5% and 10% of hull value. That's a lot of hull. The report said that on Wednesday, the market cost was $77.96 per metric ton of crude oil to ship a 270 metric ton cargo from the Gulf to China. And this price has remained stable since Monday. Before Monday, the price had been $73.80 per metric ton. The current rate is 4 times the 5-year average rate of $18.91 per metric ton. The rate was at its peak in March at about $140 per metric ton when the conflict was at its most intense. The lowest that's been since March was a little more than $60 per metric ton early June. At $77.96 per metric ton, insurance for a 270 metric ton tanker could cost around $21 million. Holy smokes. The U.S. and Iran signed their memorandum of understanding on June 17th to extend the ceasefire and continue peace talks. This resulted in a 60-day negotiation period when large-scale hostilities had largely subsided until the second week of July, when they resumed. Look at that. So over in Yemen, the Bab al-Mandeb Strait is between Yemen to its northeast and Djibouti and Eritrea in the Horn of Africa to the southwest. It connects the Red Sea to the Indian Ocean through the Gulf of Aden. It is 29 kilometers or about 18 miles wide at its narrowest point, limiting traffic to 2 channels for inbound and outbound shipments, and is effectively controlled by the Iran-backed Houthis. On Monday, the Houthis announced a naval blockade against Saudi Arabia. The Yemen-based group is a central part of Iran's axis of resistance. I have resistance to speaking words today. Let's see. Okay. Okay, I think we talked about this. We'll see. The Houthis claimed a major operation against 2 Saudi oil tankers in the Red Sea, called the Ensalia and the Layla. Got me on my knees, Layla. On Thursday, the Saudi SPA news agency confirmed the Ensalia was hit. The Houthis said they targeted those 2 tankers with cruise and ballistic missiles as well as drones. The Houthis framed the attack as part of a tit-for-tat campaign. I'm more of a tit man than a tat man, if you know what I mean. Against Saudi Arabia, they're calling it a siege for siege. They said it has been nearly 12 years since Saudi Arabia has been imposing a siege on the Yemeni people, and that it is now time for Yemen and the Houthis to respond in kind. Riyadh has rejected Houthi claims that it had besieged Yemen, failing to read anything from history, that is. The S&P report said that transit activity through Bab al-Mandeb fell sharply by 30% on Tuesday, with total crossings dropping to 29 vessels from 41 on Monday. So the insurance rates there. The S&P report quoted Marcus Baker, global head of marine cargo and logistics at Marsh, a U.S.-based insurance and risk management firm, as saying the insurance companies are charging a bit more for risk in the Red Sea, and that perceptions of risk have risen, although not to the same extent as it is in the Strait of Hormuz, or as Scott Bessent, our Treasury Secretary, calls it, the Strait of Vermouth. It added that premiums for vessels traversing Bab al-Mandeb are currently at 0.5% of hull value, compared with 0.1% for ships navigating the Red Sea near western Saudi Arabia, from where they head to the Suez Canal away from the Houthis' range. So Lars Jensen, an expert in international maritime shipping, told Al Jazeera that insurance costs were not the primary factor companies considered while determining whether to send ships through a particular route. Is probably they consider, oh shit, we're probably gonna get bombed the hell out of us. Let's get out of here. The shipping line's willingness to transit depends on their risk appetite in terms of risking the vessel to get shot at, and their tolerance for risk regarding the seafarer's safety, Jensen, the CEO of Vespucci Maritime, said. Yeah, getting shot at is kind of a big, do we really want to go through here? We could get shot. Probably not. At the same time, Simone Crummaker, an associate professor of insurance at Bayes Business School in London, told Al Jazeera that soaring insurance rates did impact the economic calculations of those sending or receiving shipments. Particularly that one example of in the Strait of Hormuz, $21 million of insurance, right? That's probably about as much as Americans pay for their health insurance. Hey! I mean, per person, because it's expensive. Cover generally remains available for many voyages through Hormuz and Bab al-Mandeb, but often are restrictive terms and at prices that can materially change the economics of a voyage, she said. Insurance is therefore coming in as a commercial constraint. Some owners will continue to transit where freight earnings justify the additional costs. Others may decide against this, even when cover is available because of crew safety, financing conditions, corporate risk limits, or concern about physical loss. She added that the spike in war risk rates within days of the Houthi blockade announcement shows how quickly the market can react. The market and underwriters already had experience from the Red Sea disruption in 2023 to 2025, so they were able to reassess the risk and reprice cover very quickly, she said, referring to the Houthi-imposed restrictions on the transit of ships linked to the U.S. and Israel during the ongoing genocidal war on Gaza. And it's not just insurance rates that shipping companies will need to consider, she said. Reduced vessel availability, longer voyages, delays, and higher fuel costs may have a greater effect than the premium itself, Crummaker said. In the case of Hormuz, disruption may also affect oil and gas prices, with broader consequences for transport, energy, and production costs. Now, I had somebody, I was talking about this blockade last week, and somebody commented on YouTube on one of my shorts that said, well, you know, they'll just go up the other way and it'll just take 45 days longer. Maybe that is if the Houthis even let them leave port, because they blockaded the ports too. Nothing comes in there, and nothing, I'm assuming, is going to be able to go out. If it does, it's going to have to be in another part of the country, and that's going to cost them way more money. And yes, we all know Saudi Arabia has like a butt ton of money, but money is finite, especially when the oil ain't flowing. Just saying. Delicious. What else we got here? So, yeah, so we talked about the Houthis' strikes on Saudi oil tankers. Houthis claim strikes on Saudi oil tankers in the Red Sea. So Yemen's Houthis said they struck 2 Saudi oil tankers in the Red Sea in the first attack of the kind since the Iranian-backed militant group declared a naval blockade of the kingdom. Please. Every time I do this show, my sinuses go crazy. I'm sure that's TMI, but, you know, just filling you in there. Houthi military spokesman Yahya Saree said on Wednesday that the group targeted the Saudi flag vessels and Salih and Layla with missiles and drones. He added that around 10 ships changed course since the blockade was formally imposed on Monday. According to the UK Maritime Trade Operations Coordinator Center, a vessel reported that it caught fire after being struck by an unidentified projectile around 130 kilometers from Al-Shuqaiq, Saudi Arabia. There were no reports of casualties. Video posted on social media appears to show a large fire aboard a ship. The Saudi press agency, SPA, later cited a source at the kingdom's Transport General Authority as confirming that the Antalya caught fire after being struck. The source said all crew members were safe. In a statement on Wednesday, Saree said the group would continue to enforce what he described as a policy of a siege for a siege, which is very similar to Iran's eye for an eye, right? Which Riyadh considers illegal under international law. Oh my goodness, you are so cute. They're so cute when they're little. It's funny how people like them and Marco Rubio, they invoke international law when, you know, they're getting shit hammered. But any other time, boy, international law. Who cares about that? The Houthis imposed a blockade a week after forces loyal to Yemen's Saudi-backed government bombed Sana'a International Airport in an attempt to prevent an Iranian plane carrying a Houthi delegation from Tehran from landing. The group has regularly launched missiles and drones at Israel since the start of the Gaza war, before reaching a ceasefire with the U.S. in May 2025. And basically, that's when the U.S. said, okay, we'll stop bombing if you stop if you stop fucking up our shit. So good stuff there. Yeah, it's getting buck wild over there, and it's only going to get worse. It's probably going to spread more too. So this is fun. Apparently, Trump and Saudi Arabia have been talking about nuclear power and possibly nuclear weapons And of course, who has to get in on it? Your old pals over there, Israel. Oh, excuse me. It was uncalled for. Trump says Saudi nuclear pact hinges on kingdom joining Abraham Accords. The kiss the ring bitch of the Middle East. Trumpy has said that a civilian nuclear cooperation deal with Saudi Arabia is totally subject to the kingdom normalizing relations with Israel as part of the Abraham Accords. Trump's statement on Thursday, a day after the agreement was announced, has cast confusion over an already opaque deal, the full details of which have not yet been released. Shocking, I know. No transparency? I know, right? It's weird. That never happens. In a post on his Truth Social account, Trumpy wrote that the agreement will be approved, but is totally subject to Saudi Arabia joining the very respected and successful Abraham Accords. Saudi Arabia did not immediately respond to the claim. Any acceptance of normalizing ties with Israel under the Accords would represent a major pivot for Riyadh, which has long opposed such a prospect. Speaking to reporters, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said she did not believe Trump had spoken with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman since posting the statement, but he had raised the issue in previous conversations. She maintained that if Riyadh does not join the Abraham Accords, the deal is off. The update came a day after the U.S. Department of Energy announced that Washington and Riyadh had signed a peaceful nuclear cooperation agreement for a decades-long multi-billion-dollar partnership, as well as a bilateral safeguard agreement related to the launching of a civilian nuclear program. Program-E, because it's from over there. Put the me on the end of it. The deal will require approval from U.S. Congress, which, really, at this point, are they even relevant? Several U.S. media reports have suggested that the agreement will allow Saudi Arabia to enrich uranium domestically as opposed to importing nuclear fuel. Such a provision would represent a major departure from how Washington has approached civilian nuclear programs abroad. It has long opposed providing enrichment technology and knowledge to countries that do not already possess it. But in his statement on Thursday, Trump appeared to deny the report, writing without further context, "There will be no enrichment of material." Because, BB came over to him and said, "Yes, we don't want the enrichment over there. So I don't know what you're talking about. Shut the fuck up and tell people that it's off. You're not doing that." The United States is not opposed to civil non-enriched nuclear facilities, he added. But BB is, and so, we're his bitch, so we got to do what he tells us. Yeah, I was. Carolyn Leavitt is a human kidney stone. So uranium enrichment is not prohibited under the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, the NPT, to which both the U.S. and Saudi Arabia are signatories. Enrichment is needed to create nuclear fuel, but when done at a much higher level, it is also the basis for creating nuclear weapons. And let me tell you this, if they allow Saudi Arabia to make nuclear weapons, guess who's going to get nuclear weapons? Yeah, I know Israel already has nuclear weapons, but that would be just another nudge for Iran to say, we're surrounded by nukes. We better get some, boys. Iran's enrichment of nuclear material has been a major justification for the ongoing U.S.-Israeli war launched on February 28th. Iran has long maintained it does not seek a nuclear weapon while framing enrichment rights as a matter of sovereignty. Saudi Arabia has also long sought a civilian nuclear program as it has pursued reducing its dependence on fossil fuels, which is ironic because don't they sell fossil fuels? Isn't that kind of their thing? Still, nuclear non-proliferation groups have heavily criticized the pact announced on Wednesday, with several lawmakers saying it could lead to a nuclear arms race in the Middle East, particularly if the deal allowed for domestic enrichment. Exactly. Some have warned it could incentivize Iran to seek nuclear weapons. Israel has also for years been assessed to possess nuclear weapons, although the U.S. government has long maintained a policy of lying for Israel. Or at least not talking about it. Turkey, Egypt, and the UAE maintain civilian nuclear infrastructures to varying degrees. On Thursday, the IAEA said it was aware of the U.S.-Saudi plan, but it had yet to receive a request to oversee inspections. We look forward to receiving the request for such verification and to working with the U.S. and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in ensuring the implementation of those members. What about Iran? Fuck Iran. Those terrorists, they don't get anything. Reporting for Washington, D.C., Al Jazeera's Mike Hanna said Trump's latest claim on the Abraham Accords has cast further confusion over the agreement. This does not appear to be part of the original agreement either, so there are many questions that arise, and no doubt will be many questions in Congress. Several Arab countries agreed to normalize ties with Israel as part of the Abraham Accords, initially signed by the UAE and Bahrain in December 2020 during Trump's first term as president. The move made the two countries the first in the region to recognize Israel since Jordan in 1994. Morocco and Sudan have also signed the accords, although Sudan has not ratified the agreement. Despite the agreements remaining in principle, Israel's relations with the signatories has cratered amidst its genocidal war in Gaza. Prior to the conflict, the accords were largely criticized for sidestepping the Palestinian issue. How about that? Both Trumpy and the administration of former U.S. President Sleepy Joe have for years vociferously pushed for Saudi Arabia to join the accords because of that. Yeah, so if Saudi Arabia decides if they allow Saudi Arabia to get nukes, Iran's going to get those nukes. They already got their backs to their wall. The current leader, Khomeini, his father was vehemently against nuclear weapons, right? He even put a fatwa. It was a fatwa against anybody who even considered trying to get nuclear weapons. But now he did, and his son's in charge. And his son doesn't seem to particularly mind discussing the matter of getting nuclear weapons. So thanks, Trumpy. The old out of the out of the frying pan and into the nuclear explosion. I'm sorry, into the fire. I think that's how that goes. What else we got here? What are we doing here? All right, a few more in our news block. So we go back to Lebanon. Hezbollah says Lebanon president's U.S. visit submission to a foreign power, basically calling him U.S.'s bitch. The Iran-backed Hezbollah group on Thursday branded Lebanese President Joseph Aoun's recent visit to Washington a failure and said it showed the government's submission to a foreign power. In a statement, the group's lawmakers said the visit revealed the extent of subservience and submission to foreign tutelage, adding that it failed to achieve an American commitment to the withdrawal of the enemy from our land, referring to Israel. The visit, according to the group, also failed to stop the crimes of killing, bombing, and bulldozing that this enemy continues to commit against our people, nor did it provide the possibility of a safe return for the displaced or the start of reconstruction. Trumpy received Aoun in Washington Tuesday, where the Lebanese leader said he stressed the urgent need for a full Israeli withdrawal from Lebanese territory. He basically saying, please, can you go? I mean, you don't really have to go right now, but can you kind of go, wishy-washy ass. Just as a reminder, the Hezbollah and the Lebanese government are two totally separate things. Hezbollah is the resistance group, and the Lebanese government are the, what's a word I can use? Pussies. Trump, when asked whether Washington would put additional pressure on Israel to withdraw, said, we'll be looking at that. Yeah, you'll be looking at that. Hezbollah drew Lebanon into the Middle East war by attacking Israel in support of Tehran on March 2nd, triggering major Israeli airstrikes and a ground invasion. In their statement, the Hezbollah lawmakers reiterated the group's rejection of Beirut's direct talks with Israel, which began in April, and a U.S.-sponsored framework agreement signed by Lebanon and Israel last month. They also called for a full Israeli withdrawal from the country's south. Lebanon's army on Tuesday began deploying the Zatar al-Gharbia as part of the agreement. Under the deal, the army is to disarm Hezbollah. Good luck with that. And the Israeli military is to withdraw from pilot zones where Lebanese troops will subsequently deploy. Again, good luck with that. Army Chief Rodolfi Heikel visited Zatar al-Gharbia on Thursday, where he reviewed the measures taken to ensure the safe return of the residents a day after Prime Minister Nawaf Salam planted a Lebanese flag in the town. While violence has declined since the signing of a U.S.-Iran memorandum last month and the Lebanon-Israel framework deal, Israel still carries out strikes on the south. On Thursday, Lebanon's state-run national news agency reported that Israeli forces carried out a large detonation in Al-Tiri near the border, and that a Syrian worker was wounded by Israeli gunfire elsewhere in the town. So, if you're keeping score at home, basically, they're trying desperately to disarm Hezbollah, and Hezbollah is not having any of that. As long as Israel, not only as long as Israel is in Lebanon, as long as Israel is in Gaza, Hezbollah is like, no, we are not disarming. That ain't going to happen. And it's a pipe dream. But it's a weak excuse for Israel to attack Lebanon and these places, because it's, well, see, Hezbollah won't disarm, so we got to, it's like, no, it's like somebody breaking into your house saying, well, the guy, the owner of the house has a gun, so I gotta blow them the hell up so I can get in their house. Or something to that effect. I kind of just made up that analogy, so it may not be totally correct. So don't hold me to that, please. But hold me, because I need hugs. Meanwhile, in Sudan, over 4.6 million displaced people returned to their areas in Sudan, according to the UN Migration Agency. The UN's International Organization for Migration, IOM, said Thursday that nearly 4.65 million displaced civilians have returned to their areas in Sudan as the number of internally displaced people due to the ongoing civil war continues to decline. Anadolu reports. The UN agency said in a statement that the new data was based on surveys done at nearly 13,000 locations across 185 localities in all 18 Sudanese states. The IOM said the number of internally displaced people reached nearly 8.69 million across 185 localities, down 25% from the highest recorded displacement level and around 1% lower than the previous month. According to the agency, nearly 4.65 million people had returned to their areas across 74 localities, with 82% returning from internal displacement locations and 18% returning from outside Sudan. Children under 18 make up around half of both displaced people and returnees, accounting for 55% of all internally displaced people and 50% of all returnees, it added. The number of returnees rose 5% from the previous month, the agency said. On June 15th, the IOM said the number of internally displaced people had declined to some 8.8 million, while the number of returnees stood at just over 4.4 million. Falling 24% from the highest displacement level in January of last year, when the number reached nearly 11.6 million. The decline is attributed to growing return movements after the Sudanese army retook the states of Khartoum, Sennar, and Al Jazeera from the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, the RSF. Even with the number of displaced falling, Sudan's humanitarian crisis continues due to the war between the army and the RSF, which began in 2023 over a dispute on integrating the military force. The conflict has killed tens of thousands and displaced around 13 million people at its peak, according to UN estimates. Yes, we don't really talk too much about Sudan on this channel, usually because it's the same news over and over going. You have several people who have been there and are doing good analysis on this that do a far better job than I do. So my apologies if you're like, well, why are you finally covering Sudan. We do, but like I said, I don't really do it justice. And it just seems like, it's a civil war that's been going on for a while. So Willie Bragg, everybody, good to see you. Thanks again for coming on Wednesday for the Undercurrent. We appreciate you. If you're not subscribed to the Undercurrent, please do so. The link is down in the description below, probably towards the end, or right before we show you the sources and stuff. So please do. We got 103 subscribers now, and those are real people, I'm assuming. So we appreciate that. And we appreciate you coming on, Willie. That was a fun time. Friend of the show, Willie is. Not a friend of Israel is Kareem Khan of the ICC. You like that segue? Khan faces historic removal vote as critics warn ICC process has been politicized. Member states of the International Criminal Court are set to gather at the UN headquarters in New York today for a controversial vote which could see the court's chief prosecutor, Kareem Khan, dismissed from his job over alleged misconduct claims. It will be the first time in the ICC's 24-year history that member states have been asked to decide whether to remove a sitting chief prosecutor from office. The Assembly of States Parties, the ASP, the court's governing body that is made up of its 125 members, will vote by secret ballot, requiring an absolute majority of 63 states to remove the prosecutor, which is like, I think it's 50% plus one. That's how that works out, because that'd be 126. Is it? Yeah, that would be okay. Khan's lawyers said they have been denied accreditation to attend Friday's session and to mount a defense prior to the vote. They added that the president of the ASP has closed every formal channel through which they can address their assembly and has asked all state parties not to meet with the legal team. So ASP is kind of appropriate. There's snakes there. The right under the rules to address you on the substantive decision of misconduct has been flatly denied to us, Khan's lawyers, Tayyab Ali and Sareda Ashraf, wrote in a statement on Tuesday. We know of no court or tribunal in any proper and fair legal system that bars a person facing the gravest professional sanction from being heard. They added. The vote result is expected to be announced to the public by the end of today. Member states are set to vote on the finding by the ASP Bureau last month that Khan engaged in a sexual relationship with the complainant, which was considered to be inappropriate given the power imbalance between them. However, the Bureau's decision of June 8th appears to reframe the nature of Khan's alleged sexual misconduct. Khan has denied the existence of any sexual relationship, while the complainant's account centered on allegations of non-consensual conduct. In an interview with CNN last week, which was her first public appearance in connection with the case, the complainant, a member of Khan's office staff who CNN identified as Sarah, stood by the allegation of non-consensual sexual conduct. These allegations, details of which had previously been leaked to the media, were the main focus of a lengthy external investigation conducted by the UN Office of Internal Oversight Services, or OIOS. The investigation also looked into 3 allegations of retaliation by Khan against members of his office. The OIOS report was then reviewed by a 3-judge panel, which concluded it had failed to establish any misconduct or breach of duty under the relevant framework. The Bureau has not made a finding of misconduct against Khan related to any of the retaliation allegations. Friday's vote comes shortly following extraordinary threats by U.S. Secretary of State Aquaman Marco Rubio that Washington would dismantle the ICC brick by brick if necessary, while most of the court's judges and prosecutors, including Khan, have been sanctioned by the U.S. over their work on the Palestine and Afghanistan war crimes investigation. Fun fact, in case you didn't know, and most of you do, but Rubio's talking about dismantling the ICC, probably more so because Khan has been trying to prosecute Benjamin Netanyahu and some of his cronies for their war crimes or their crimes against humanity. Funny how that works out. The disciplinary process against Khan emerged in the wake of his decision to seek arrest warrants over 2 years ago for Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, along with 3 Hamas leaders, I think who are all dead now, over alleged war crimes committed during the war in Gaza since October 2023. The vote also comes amid continuing questions and criticism about the Aspen Bureau's handling of the investigation, particularly over concerns that the process has been politicized after the opinion of the judges panel, which unanimously found that no wrongdoing had been established, was disregarded by Bureau member states. Funny how that works out. More than 160 Palestinian civil society organizations and rights groups signed a statement last week arguing that the disciplinary process, quote, has been reduced to a political referendum following the national interests of individual states' parties. On Saturday, Middle East Eye reported comments by Joseph Borrell, the former EU foreign policy chief, who accused the ASP of holding a political vote to remove Khan instead of upholding judicial findings that cleared him of wrongdoing. Borrell argued that the Khan case is part of a larger offensive against the ICC, citing the U.S. sanctions and threats targeting Khan and other officials following his decision to seek arrest warrants for Israeli and Hamas leaders in May 2024. The complaint against Khan included allegations of sexual assault on a number of occasions, including on overseas missions and at The Hague, where the court is based. According to the complaint, the alleged abuse began in March 2023 and continued for nearly a year. The allegations were first revealed to Khan in person by members of his team on May 2nd of 2024. An internal investigation by the ICC's own investigative body, the Internal Oversight Mechanism, the IOM, was opened and closed in the following week as the complainant refused to cooperate. Later in the same month, Khan officially sought arrest warrants for Netanyahu, Gallant, and 3 Hamas officials. The number of media reports at the time suggested that Khan sought arrest warrants on May 20th that year to win support in the context of allegations against him. But according to a Middle East Eye investigation, the prosecutor's decision to apply for warrants was made 6 weeks before the allegations were made, and the application for the warrants was submitted only after the first internal investigation into the harassment accusations had been opened and closed. Allegations against Khan resurfaced on social media and in the regular media in October 2024. A second IOM investigation was opened and closed in November, but the complainant again refused to cooperate, prompting the ASP to commission an outsourced investigation by the OIOS. For more than a year, UN investigators were tasked with gathering and weighing evidence against Khan to enable the panel of judges appointed by the Bureau to provide authoritative legal advice on whether the prosecutor had committed misconduct, applying the standard of proof beyond reasonable doubt. On December 11th, they submitted their 150-page report and 5,000 pages of evidence to the panel. The judges then spent nearly 3 months examining the OIOS probe before reaching their conclusion in March. In a report seen by Middle East Eye, the panel concluded unanimously that the facts presented in the UN investigation do not establish misconduct or breach of duty under the relevant framework. But a few weeks after the judge's panel report, a majority of Bureau members backed a motion to disregard it, suggesting that Khan may have committed misconduct. The vote prompted concerns that the process could be politicized. After giving Khan and the complainants a final opportunity to make further submissions, the Bureau then moved to formally suspend him 2 months later and referred the matter to the ASP. There's more here for the full details. This is from Middle East Eye. I'll have this in the Substack. That's extrabulla.substack.com. Please subscribe. So we have the full show in there for you, and then we have links to all the stories that we do in the show so that you can read them. I mean, I show them on screen, but, you know, if you don't trust me, you can click those links, and they'll take you to the actual reports that we do, you know, because we like, unlike some people, we like transparency in our news coverage. So, some tech news, some money news, I guess, too. The googly. Google hit with $1 billion EU fine in constructive talks to avoid more penalties. There's somebody's foot there. What the hell? Alphabet's Google was fined a total of 890 million euros. That's 100 billion smackaroonies on Thursday for flouting European Union rules aimed at reining in the power of big tech, the European Commission said. However, the tech giant is likely to avoid fresh fines as EU regulators lauded good progress in its efforts to comply with the landmark legislation. Yeah, right. A little under-the-table money probably exchange. The fines underscored Europe's determination to prevent big tech companies from thwarting rivals, defying U.S. criticism and retaliatory tariff threats. One fine of 460 million euros was handed out under the Digital Markets Act for favoring its own services in shopping, hotels, transport, and sports results in search results. A second fine of 430 million euros targeted Google's restrictions on its app store, Google Play, preventing app developers from steering users free of charge to cheaper offers on rival app stores or websites. Okay. Reuters was the first to report on both fines, which are the first for Google under the DMA, but the fifth and sixth overall for anti-competitive practices, making for total penalties of 10.38 billion euros over nearly 2 decades. Our duty and obligation is to comply with the laws, that our laws are fully respected, EU antitrust chief Teresa Ribera told reporters when asked about U.S. pushback. The DMA is to make sure we have a fair and level playing field. With these decisions, we want to make sure there is competition. Competition. Yeah, lovey. EU tech chief Hanna Verkunen told reporters, Google, which has 60 days to comply with the Commission's orders to treat rivals in a fair and non-discriminatory manner and to allow app developers to steer users away from its app store, criticized the EU findings and said it might take the Commission to court. To comply, we are having to strip away real-time search features Europeans love, like instant pricing and direct availability for hotels, flights, and restaurants, and dismantle safety protections on Google Play. Google President of Global Affairs Kent Walker said in a statement, "This isn't fair competition. It's product degradation driven by a small group of self-serving complainants with European businesses and consumers taking the hit." Yeah, right. We pass the fines along to you. The crackdown on big tech has angered the Trump administration, which he's heavily invested in, which has threatened to retaliate with tariffs or what he said are moves targeting U.S. companies. U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer, you know that old guy, said the fine and other EU actions are driving massive uncertainty for U.S. exports of goods and services to Europe. Greer said in a statement noting a recent record loan to Airbus from the EU lending arm, it becomes clear that the EU continues to target the most competitive U.S. companies. He didn't mention any U.S. plans to retaliate, though. The Commission, which acts as the EU competition enforcer, pointed to a constructive dialogue with Google and significant progress made to comply with the DMA, indicating that the daily penalties for non-compliance are likely off the table. Google has proposed and started testing changes to how it presents its own services on Google Search for free services such as shopping, hotels, and flights, the Commission said, calling it substantial progress. The Commission also notes that Google has proposed and started testing changes to how it presents shopping ads and content-related services such as sports, it said. The EU watchdog also said Google may apply the principle of Thursday's decision to its AI-generated summaries known as AI overviews and AI mode, and that talks would continue to this end. Google's changes to its steering terms on Google Play received a tentative thumbs up from the Commission. These can constitute good progress towards compliance and will also be assessed in light of the cease and desist order of today's decision, it said. The fines are the third under the DMA after penalties handed out to Apple and Meta platforms in April last year. Yeah. Which basically means, I mean, you know, $1 billion, please. Google. That's a drop in the bucket. Little little some of that. Mea culpa for that. OpenAI models go rogue, hack another company. Here's how. This is where is this from? This is Click on Detroit. Detroit style pizza. That and deep dish. I'm a convert now. I used to think New York pizza was the best. New York pizza is ass compared to Chicago and Detroit pizza. It's like pizza on steroids, only without the steroids. You know what I mean? This sounds like a movie plot, but it is very real. The company behind ChatGPT just announced that 2 of its AI programs broke out of a locked testing environment on their own and hacked into another tech company. No humans told them to do it, allegedly. They just did it. Here's what actually happened. OpenAI, the parent company of ChatGPT, was running a security test on 2 of its most powerful AI programs. The test was happening in a controlled environment. Think of it like a sealed room with no internet access, but no Faraday cage either. The AI was not supposed to get out, but it figured out how to break free and get online anyway. Then it found out where the answers to its test were stored at another tech company called Hugging Face and broke into their servers to get them. Now, the AI was not trying to cause trouble, allegedly. It was simply obsessed with getting a perfect score, so focused on winning the test that it went to extreme lengths, breaking rules it was not supposed to be able to break just to get the right answers. And this is not the only case. Another AI company recently reported its AI escaped and sent emails it was never told to send. There was also another AI company whose AI escaped and was playing video games and smoking weed and watching videos on Pornhub. Safety researchers say incidents like this will keep happening. Why? Because powerful AI models are becoming unpredictable and uncontrollable. Professor Doug Witten, a cybersecurity expert in the James and Patricia Anderson College of Engineering at Wayne State University, said some shit. I guess they joined the local 4. I guess that's it. To help understand what this means as the world continues to embrace this technology or repulse this technology in some cases. Yeah. So your Skynet nightmares may actually be coming true in the near future. How's everybody doing? Everybody all right? Orange whip? Orange whip? Orange whip? Yeah. So in today's propaganda watch, we talk about what's going on with Breakthrough News, but also the Department of Justice is withdrawing subpoenas for New York Times reporters. We will tell you about that in just a moment.
Sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media. Unfortunately, some members are using their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Fight and you win. Free press advocates cheer as Trump's DOJ withdraws subpoenas of New York Times reporters. So the DOJ on Thursday withdrew its subpoenas of New York Times reporters that were heavily criticized by free press advocates. According to the Times, Deputy U.S. Attorney Sean Buckley told U.S. District Judge Arun Subramanian, is that a real name? That the government is prepared to unilaterally withdraw the subpoenas, which were issued earlier this month, shortly after the paper published a story detailing security concerns about the luxury jet the Qatari government gave to Trumpy. All Rise News reported that Buckley also told the court that the DOJ made a mistake when it issued subpoenas to phone companies for subscriber information and toll records for phone numbers used by one reporter's mother and by 2 reporters' spouses. Oops! Oopsie sauce! I think we were telling you about this on the Undercurrent the other day, too. So it's an update. That was an error. Wink, wink, wink. Buckley said of the subpoenas related to reporters' family members, it was a consequence of trying to move quickly. Eric Lipton, one of the Times journalists who had been subpoenaed, wrote in a social media post that he was glad to hear the government's decision to back down. Enormous thank you to the entire New York Times legal team and outside counsel that has worked with such clarity and determination to challenge this, Lipton added. From the moment we first heard, FBI agents were starting to show up at our houses. David McCraw, the top attorney representing the Times newsroom, called the DOJ's decision an important affirmation of our country's commitment to a free press. No, they probably got a lot of shit. They probably took a lot of shit from him. They're like, all right. We are pleased that the government finally conceded that the subpoenas violated the law, but they should never have been issued in the first place because they violated the law, which is kind of ironic since it was the Department of Justice. The Times and our journalists will continue to report and seek the truth without fear or favor. We will not be deterred in the face of tactics like these. It is the New York Times, so, they'll probably still, report on shit libby stuff and scare you. They tend to do that. The Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press celebrated the DOJ subpoena withdrawal while crediting Subpoenaed for pointed questioning of government lawyers. Targeting reporters to appease the White House has reached a dead end once again in the federal courts, the group said. Judge Subpoenaed saw DOJ's efforts clearly for what it was, a brazen and careless government overreach. The Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression described the DOJ decision as a welcome reversal, but warned that the dangers posed to the First Amendment by the Trump DOJ were not over. Withdrawing the subpoenas does not erase the chilling effect of issuing them in the first place, and the DOJ should not reissue them, the group said. Journalists should not have to choose between protecting confidential sources and facing government threats. A free press depends on reporters being able to pursue the truth and on sources being able to share information the public has a right to know. John Schwartz, professor at the University of Texas at Austin School of Journalism and Media, said there was a practical lesson to be learned from how the Times handled the Trump administration's efforts to force its reporters into court. Fight and you win, wrote Schwartz. Always punch the bullies in the nose. Or, you know what? Maybe fix this system, create a new system so where you don't allow bullies in like that in the first place. I'm just spitballing here. I don't really know much, bit of a drinker. So press freedom groups warn no newsroom in America is safe after House GOP subpoenas left-wing outlets. So we go from the DOJ to the GOP, MOUSC. Press freedom groups are issuing dire warnings on Thursday that House Republicans' efforts to subpoena the nonprofit left-wing news organization BreakThrough News represents a dangerous new step in a McCarthyite war on political dissent. On Wednesday, Fox News reported that BreakThrough, a New York-based outlet, was one of 3 nonprofits that had been issued subpoenas by the GOP-controlled House Ways and Means Committee as part of an investigation into $39 million worth of donations from tech mogul Neville Roy Singham, a self-described socialist who has used his wealth to fund left-wing nonprofits. In letters sent Thursday, the committee, led by Representative Jason Smith, Republican out of Missouri, said that BreakThrough, as well as 2 other organizations, the People's Forum Incorporated, a New York-based activist hub, and Tricontinental Institute for Social Research, had not turned over any documents that had been requested as part of an investigation into whether rules around tax-exempt status for nonprofits should be tightened to protect against foreign influence. Oh, really? Really? Foreign influence and nonprofits. Who does that remind you of? Begins with an I and ends with fuck you. That's basically what it is. The committee has accused Singham, an American who now lives in Shanghai, of exploiting the tax code and using shell companies and donor-advised funds to hide foreign money that has been used to promote the interests of the Chinese Communist Party. Take a drink. Take a drink. You're going to be drunk by the end of this article. It does not, however, make any specific accusation of legal wrongdoing. How about that? Right? Oh man, my throat's so dry. Thank you, Chuck. I hope you have some water up there in space. The subpoena requires Breakthrough News to turn over records about its finances, foreign donors and grant recipients, fiscal sponsorship arrangements, and communications with Singham and any foreign entities. Rules for thee, but not for Bibi. In a statement on Wednesday, Breakthrough News said it was under attack. For years, Republican lawmakers have painted a target on our backs, falsely claiming that our political views and reporting are part of some foreign plot, the outlet said. Now the MAGA-dominated House Ways and Means Committee has issued us a subpoena demanding internal communications, financial records, and more. Make no mistake, this is a flagrant abuse of power and a direct attack on our work as journalists and on the First Amendment generally. Breakthrough said it does not receive any funding from foreign governments or institutions and that it already complies with all the tax and public reporting requirements that nonprofits have to follow. We are not charged with any crime because our only crime has been to tell the truth by covering the activities of the Palestine Solidarity Movement, unmasking the truth of ISIS terror in our streets, and exposing Washington's crimes around the world from Cuba to the Congo, the outlet said. That's the journalism that they want to shut down. Their goal is to saddle us with legal proceedings and hostile media to drain our resources and stop this important work. While the committee stated that they are investigating Breakthrough over its financial rather than its politics, letters sent to the organization have treated the content of its reporting as circumstantial evidence of malign foreign influence, referring to it as anti-American and claiming that its negative coverage of Israel was sowing division within the United States. Cocksuckers. God, man, he's dry in here, man. Chip Gibbons, the policy director of the free speech advocacy group Defending Rights and Dissent, told Common Dreams, that's this outlet here, as you can see right there at the top of the page there, told Common Dreams that the subpoena of Breakthrough was a deeply chilling assault on the First Amendment. Such tactics are quite literally a throwback to the House Un-American Activities Committee, which today is mostly viewed as a disgrace. Of course, that being McCarthyism, not Paul McCarthyism. No Beatles were involved. I say mostly because just 3 days ago, Secretary Marco Rubio's State Department released a report preposterously attacking the U.S. left, including some of these groups, as Cuban fronts that cited old HUAC reports. HUAC, right? You're either Cuban or you're Chinese or some sort of whatever, right? He further emphasized in a press release that there was no plausible need for a news organization to provide documents as part of a broad congressional inquiry. The only thing these groups are accused of is essentially receiving donations from a U.S. citizen who has been the subject of an intensive campaign of demonization, Gibbons said. It is lawful for Americans to donate to activist causes and media projects while holding views disfavored by Congress. This is clearly not a valid legislative inquiry at all, but an attempt to intimidate and chill dissenting opinions. Seth Stern, the chief of advocacy for the Freedom of the Press Foundation, agreed that Congress shouldn't be using a tax investigation as a pretext to dig through a newsroom's internal communications or financial records. Freedom of the press, he said, applies to all journalists regardless of whether politicians like their editorial slant or their politics. In what it has portrayed as a fight against left-wing terrorism, the Trump administration has increasingly blurred the lines between violent activity and protected political speech that they claim incites violence. National security. Oh, you located? Oh, good. Thanks. I'm glad you're okay. We don't want you choking, Chuck. National Security, Uncle Chuck, I'm sorry. National Security Presidential Memorandum 7, signed by Trump in September. Was it, damn, I was going to make a, was it Mambo number 9? I was going to make a, never mind, it's too late. Designates large swaths of left-wing viewpoints on race, gender, immigration, and other topics as indicators of domestic terrorism that have been used to link entire groups of people to violent acts they themselves did not commit. And which is funny because there was a there was a study that came out recently that said the overwhelming majority of terrorism is by right-wing, extreme right-wing groups and not left-wing groups. Also, Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, wanting $350 billion for the military to fight communism in America. Not making that up. Aquaman said last week that the administration would soon be designating more left-wing organizations as terrorist groups, while senior Trumpy advisor and snake handler and snake himself, Stephen Miller, said that the full force of the state would be used to disrupt, identify, defund, debank, arrest, prosecute those deemed to foment political violence, not just those who actually commit it. And if you say anything that goes against their narrative, they're going to say, oh, that's terrorist. That's, you're fomenting political violence. I'm sorry, Kate. I know he's Uncle Chuck. And Cousin Willie. He has previously pledged to use the law to dismantle organizations that used heated rhetoric to refer to their right-wing opponents, including calling them fascist or authoritarian. He's calling them fascist? Oh, okay. Nora Benavides, senior counsel at Free Press, described the subpoena of BreakThrough as an extension of a retaliatory ethos Trump has taken towards critical journalists with the goal of shutting down criticism and dissent. She told Common Dreams, BreakThrough News is not the first, nor will it be the last, to come under official attack for bringing people alternative and useful news coverage about ICE abuses, foreign policy, Palestinian rights, and other topics. Allowing a congressional committee to harass an independent newsroom with a broad subpoena sets an awful precedent, Stern said. If lawmakers can abuse tax oversight to single out outlets whose reporting offends them today, no newsroom in America is safe from government intimidation tomorrow. Now, I was talking to my buddy, seasoned journalist Don Culpepper on ExtraBulla Live the other day. If you haven't seen that interview, it's quite enlightening. We were talking about journalism in the past compared to today, and I mentioned something that the mainstream media now has zero credibility, so people are turning more and more to independent sources, and how some of those sources may be actual journalists and some of them may be just pundits, which there is a significant difference in the view. My view about this is this, always check the background of the source that you're using primarily for your news, or one of your primary sources for news. Follow the money, right? See who's funding them. If it's totally 100% just regular donors, that's all well and good. If it's one single individual, you should, for yourself, scrutinize who that is and make sure that there is no conflict of interest or anything like that. That's just common sense when it comes to independent news sources these days. But when you start going after them for tax purposes, like they, went after, what's his face, Al Capone, they couldn't get him on all the crimes that he actually did, so they got him on tax evasion finally. That seems to be their goal. Go after their taxes. Go after their nonprofit status, that sort of thing. Always be skeptical, but at the same time, remember, there is some true journalism going on out there. It's in an ocean of propaganda, so you have to be very careful. That's why I always tell you at the end of these shows, use your critical thinking skills. Don't let anybody think for you. All right. Don't take things at face value. Find multiple sources if you can. I know it takes time, but if you want the truth is not just going to come up to you and go, hey, buddy, how you doing? I'm the truth. You have to go look for that shit. All right. Off my soapbox. This is some crazy shit. So, you remember in Kentucky, I believe the people who are trying to get Thomas Massie to lose his primary seat, which he did, they put out some AI video basically with him and AOC and Ilhan Omar going into a hotel together. And the geniuses in Kentucky bought it hook, line, and sinker, and he lost, which is kind of funny now because he may actually go after the Senate seat that the Turtle Man Mitch McConnell, brain dead or really dead, may be giving up soon. So, but this is, we go to Michigan for fuckery. As Stevens, the House member Stevens sends out fake El Sayed press release claiming he's endorsed by their GOP opponent. Dirty politics is not a new thing, but it is kind of a new thing with all this, sometimes with all this digital stuff, you go by old-timey dirty tricks. With less than 2 weeks before the critical Democratic Senate primary in Michigan, Representative Haley Stevens, and reincarnation of Meatloaf, is reportedly resorting to some underhanded tactics to attack her opponent, Dr. Abdul El Sayed, by sending out an email making it appear as if he was celebrating an endorsement from their Republican rival. Remington Hernandez, a political reporter at WWMT-TV, reported on Thursday that the Stevens campaign had sent a fake press release meant to look like it had come from El Sayed's team. Endorsement alert, Mike Rogers endorses Abdul Al-Sayed in the Democratic U.S. Senate primary, the email says, beneath an Abdul for Senate graphic identical to the one used in his campaign communications. There it is right there. The email quotes Rogers, I think it tells you here in the article, but we've said this before. $50 million of AIPAC money have been poured into this campaign for pro Stevens and anti El Sayed ads and whatnot. The email quotes Rogers, a former Republican U.S. congressman expected to be the GOP Senate nominee, saying he wants to face El Sayed in the general election because he'd be easier to beat than Stevens. Now, where have we heard that before? Well, we didn't hear it, but we found out. What was it when Hillary Clinton wanted to face off against Trump in 2016 because he'd be easy to beat? You see how that worked out. If he wins, I think we're in good shape, it quotes Rogers, saying, I think we'll do well if he, in fact, is the nominee. The quote from Rogers is real. It comes from a CNN report published on Thursday about a call with supporters last month in which he reportedly called El Sayed so radical and predicted he'd lose big parts of the west part of the state. But it is not true, as the email claims that Rogers had endorsed El Sayed. Ben Salas, a reporter at Michigan Advance, who also received the email, noted that it appeared designed to look authentic with multiple graphics at the bottom, mimicking those El Sayed's social media team had posted following actual endorsements. Is this ethical or legal to make a fake campaign endorsement ad like this, he asked. And even if it is that playing fair? Seems pretty underhanded at first glance. Despite the criticism, Stevens has run with the quote herself as part of her pitch against El Sayed and posted the fake graphics to her own social media accounts, claiming that Rogers was really wanting Abdul to win this primary. But it's also not entirely clear whether Rogers was even saying that he'd prefer to take on El Sayed over Stevens. The CNN article states that Rogers was responding to a question about his campaign strategy for El Sayed. What is Rogers supposed to say? Asked media critic Adam Johnson. Of course, he's saying they're in good shape, but just as he would if he would ask about Stevens. Now, this is a House race, right? Or is this Senate? I can't remember. I'm sorry. Should know these things. It's unclear what, if any, response Rogers gave to the prospect of facing Stevens, but Johnson said that on a call full of potential donors, it was probably something similar. Was Rogers asked about Stevens? Has anyone seen the full donor call? He asked. If he was asked about Stevens, do we think he said, gee golly, she's going to be tough to beat? Or do we think he also projected confidence he would defeat her as well, because this is the thing you tell donors? A lie by omission. He also pointed out that Stevens' largest source of financial backing during the race has been, of course, AIPAC. The United Democracy Project, whose two largest donors, hedge fund manager Paul Singer and WhatsApp co-founder Jan Koum, are both major supporters of Republicans who spent millions backing Donald Trump in 2024. Yes, Republicans are so excited to take on El Sayed. Stevens' two biggest backers are Republican mega donors, Johnson equipped. While Stevens has attempted to portray her progressive opponent as less electable, an average of 4%, average of 4 recent polls from 2070 to win shows El Sayed with a slightly larger polling lead over Rogers than she has. Kind of like when Bernie Sanders had a bigger polling numbers over Trumpy. In fact, he was the only one who was projected to actually beat Trump. But I digress. Not a Bernie fan anymore. I'm not defending it. I'm just telling you it is what it is. An official account for El Sayed's campaign noted that it's not the first example of deceptive tactics being used to promote Stevens. Michigan Airways have been blanketed by a pro-Stevens super PAC ad heavily implying that she'd been endorsed by former President Barack Obama. Although Stevens did work on the team supporting Obama's efforts to revive the automobile industry during the post-2008 financial recovery, former president has not endorsed her Senate campaign in 2026, at least not openly. I don't have to endorse her. The AIPAC's doing a good job. They don't need me. Mike Rogers has not endorsed Abdul, just like President Obama has not endorsed Haley, said El Sayed's campaign on Thursday, but there's so much disinformation coming out of her campaign, it's hard to tell if this is satire or just another lie unbefitting of a congresswoman. Okay, so it is Congress. Yeah. So, and she's scared too, right? Because who's that lady in Colorado who was there for like 30 years? She got booted out by somebody who wasn't taking AIPAC money. That AIPAC check be nice, but not if you want to get reelected, apparently. I'm sure some sort of shit will happen. So we go back to Israel. Speaking of Bibi and his peoples over there. Ooh, excuse me. You know where? All right, there we go. So Netanyahu asks High Court to delay October 7th inquiry until after elections. I don't need this shit right now. I'm the devil. The government of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu asked the High Court of Justice on July 22nd not to issue a ruling to establish a state commission of inquiry into the October 7th, 2023 Hamas Operation Al-Aqsa flood before the upcoming Knesset elections, saying the issue is politically sensitive. The Knesset is currently dissolved at this point until those elections occur. I think it tells you down here, but the way in which the October 7th events are investigated is at the heart of a political argument between the parties standing for election, Netanyahu's government told the High Court. For these reasons, it's not appropriate that the court issue a ruling on this issue or intervene over it at this stage, the government added, while claiming the court has no authority to establish a state commission of inquiry in the first place. Netanyahu has sought to prevent the establishment of a state commission of inquiry to probe the events of October 7th, headed by investigators appointed by the High Court's top judge, whom he claims is biased against him. Polls have shown that a majority of Israelis support establishing such an inquiry, the traditional body investigating major incidents and the only body empowered to subpoena witnesses, according to the Times of Israel. Maybe he doesn't want people to find out about the Hannibal initiative, where they were basically, no hostages. Let's because people on those ultralight flying go-karts were able to blow up all those cars. Probably doesn't want that getting out. Instead, Netanyahu is trying to pass legislation in the Knesset to establish a committee to probe October 7th that would be headed by investigators appointed by Netanyahu's government themselves. Oh, gee, how that works out, right? However, the Prime Minister told the High Court that he has been unable to pass such a bill due to legislative time constraints, before the Knesset was dissolved last week. According to members of Israel's political opposition, a committee of inquiry established by the government rather than the High Court would allow Netanyahu to shield himself from responsibility for his failures to prevent the Hamas operation, or shield himself from the responsibility of probably helping instigate it in the first place, or letting it happen. The Israeli public has now waited almost 3 years for a comprehensive investigation into the Hamas-led attack on Israeli military bases and settlements, which nearly 1,200 Israelis were killed. Hamas took another 253 Israeli soldiers and civilians captive in a bid to exchange them for Palestinians unjustly held in Israeli prisons and detention centers where torture is widespread. Israel insists that Hamas killed all 1,200 Israelis who died that day in ultralight flying go-karts. They killed 1,200 people with minuscule weapons, too. Meanwhile, Israel has Apache helicopters with big guns and missiles. However, as the attack unfolded, the Israeli military issued a controversial order known as the Hannibal Directive, Hannibal Directive, instructing its troops and pilots to kill not only Hamas resistance fighters, but also captive Israeli civilians and soldiers. Israeli helicopter and drone pilots and tank operators opened fire on Israeli military bases as they were under attack, killing Israeli soldiers as well as Hamas fighters. They also opened fire on Israeli settlements known as kibbutzim, destroying and burning homes with Israeli civilians and Hamas fighters inside. Israeli helicopters and drones also opened fire with missiles and high-caliber ammunition on Hamas fighters and Israeli captives, traveling in cars toward the Gaza border, burning them alive. Netanyahu has denied responsibility for the attack because he always denies responsibility for anything, blaming the military and domestic intelligence services for failing to anticipate and stop it. Following the Hamas attack, Netanyahu unleashed a more than 2-year-long bombing campaign on Palestinian civilians in Gaza, a genocide that has killed over 73,000 people, officially, but unofficially thousands more, and is considered a genocide, as it says. The ICC has issued a warrant for Netanyahu's arrest for war crimes, including using starvation as a weapon of war. That same ICC that Karim Khan is being put on trial for, or is being voted against, I guess, in the UN. We'll see. Yeah, we can probably skip that. Okay. So, speaking of BB, let's talk about Flock. And this is some interesting reporting by James Lee, right? So, there are people who are against the Flock cameras, right? As well you should be, but there may be some underlying reason besides the obvious why some people are against these Flock cameras, and he's going to tell us about this in his most recent video. I think this came out yesterday or today. Let's listen.
Okay, in 2015, Jeffrey Epstein partnered with former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak to invest in a security tech startup called Reporty Homeland Security, now known as Carbon. Yes, Jeffrey Epstein in Israel is a part of this story, as they usually are. Okay, so if you guys remember, at the end of my mini doc about Flock surveillance cameras, I was telling you guys about a hunch that I had that something more could be going on. Specifically, I was asking if all of the viral anti-Flock content that is blowing up on the internet right now could have been potentially astroturfed to facilitate the build out of an even bigger mass surveillance state. Well, let me tell you guys, I think I was onto something, because boy, do I now have a few receipts. First off, quick recap. Flock Safety is this company that makes automated license plate readers, ALPRs as they're called, which are these AI-powered cameras that capture and analyze images of passing vehicles, and they store these details like your car's location, date, time, many other things. And over the past 8 years, they've installed over 110,000 of these cameras across America. Most likely, you will find them in your neighborhood. And some are even alleging that these cameras, which they say only tracks cars, is also capable of facial recognition, and all of this data that's being collected is going into a massive national dragnet database. This is something that nobody voted for. Nobody's asking for these things to be installed, so I believe the backlash is real. Let me be clear. Flock is in serious trouble after massive backlash. The reporting is that at least 53 cities have ended their contracts with the company so far, according to a July 22nd article from Futurism. But the part I'm suspicious about is this hyper-focus on one company when there are many others that make exactly the same kind of product. Check this out.
I'm also excited to announce that we are working with another industry leader, Ubiquia, to turn streetlights into smart ALPR and live streaming cameras. Without having to add a single pole in the ground, this partnership accelerates deployments and turns existing infrastructure into intelligent, interconnected tools for public safety.
That's what they always say. They always tell us that it is for our safety, quote unquote, public safety. And unfortunately, most of us fall for it every single time. That was, by the way, the CEO of Axon Enterprise. His name is Rick Smith. And Axon is this multi-billion-dollar company that makes things like police body cams, tasers, drones, in-car cameras, and also AI-powered cloud software for law enforcement, military, and enterprise security. And recently, in 2025, they announced that they are going to be expanding into what they call new fixed ALPR camera solutions and next-gen AI advancements, basically the same exact technology and products that Flock makes. Now, this is where the story starts to get interesting. When I was doing research putting together the mini doc, I noticed a bit of a pattern where city councils facing public backlash would say, okay, we hear you guys, we will cancel Flock, only to then sign a new contract with Axon, including this example that you see here from Douglas County, which is the Denver area, where the sheriff's office voted to replace Flock cameras with a $22.8 million Axon system. Flock to Axon, that's what we call 6 in one, half a dozen in the other. Another example is Syracuse, New York. Quote, the Syracuse Common Council on Monday voted to pass an agreement with Axon to install 26 new license plate readers. The 5-year agreement, which comes at a cost of $422,000, goes into effect March 1st. The city presently works with Flock for the same technology, but city leaders express concerns about the collection and sharing of personal information under that arrangement. I've noticed probably about 6 or 7 of these kinds of cases where cities are shifting from Flock to Axon that I know of so far. There are probably many more. So the big question is, what is going on here? Well, let's talk about who owns Flock and who owns Axon. Okay, on one side, Flock, you have investment groups like Andreessen Horowitz. That is Mark Andreessen's group, the Conehead guy. Further down the list, you see highlighted Founders Fund. That is Peter Thiel's group. Y Combinator below that, that is the group that used to be run by Sam Altman. And then on the other side, Axon, that is a public company that is 91% owned by institutional investors, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. That's the big 3, and they are the top 3 shareholders of the company. I hope you guys are noticing a little bit of a pattern here. It's Silicon Valley technocrats on one side with Flock, and the other side, Wall Street bankers and finance. I think when people talk about the powers that be, quote unquote, whether you want to call it the deep state or the Illuminati or whatever, they often think that they're unified, okay? In many cases, they do have a similar shared goal, but at other times, there's a turf war going on in the background that doesn't get talked about a lot. And I think this might be one of those situations happening right now. Okay, almost every single piece of content that I've come across about mass surveillance specifically targets Flock, not necessarily the mass surveillance industrial complex as a whole. So I thought, that is very interesting. Could it be a coincidence? Maybe. But then I saw MAGA influencers starting to get involved in the conversation here. Tim Pool is talking about how Flock cameras are really just AI law enforcement. They are building a system of evil to track normal, everyday people. I couldn't agree more. But again, the target is specifically laser focused on Flock. Matt Walsh just did a deep dive a couple days ago about Flock. And here's Eric Daughtry, another MAGA mouthpiece account, I would consider him, posting about Flock cameras being vandalized. You guys perhaps picking up what I'm putting out there? There's a bit of a pattern emerging. And then I came across this reporting from Tony Ortiz, a reporter from Texas, who claimed, quote, At least 2 influencers he's spoken to have been approached with offers of money in exchange for posting negatively about flock cameras on X. So now it's not just a theory. We're talking about a possible paid influencer campaign. Weird, to say the least. And then this morning, as I was putting this piece together, I saw that Tim Burchett announced that he's going to propose a bill to block flock cameras. Let's take a listen.
Hey everybody, Tim Burchett. I've proposed legislation, here's the bill, to eliminate federal funding and federal agencies purchasing those flock cameras. I find it pretty disgusting. They're pretty draconian, and you can look that up if you want to know what that means.
Well, given everything that's happened in the past few years, few decades, quite honestly, I think most of us do know what draconian means, but of course, I think the big question that we have to ask is he against flock cameras or is he against mass surveillance in general? I don't know for sure yet. But here's something that we do know for sure about all of this is that Donald Trump earlier this year invested millions of dollars into Axon Enterprise. My spidey senses are tingling, right? Could we be seeing some kind of mass psyop against flock, basically creating public backlash against one specific company? The city council goes, okay, no more flock. And the people are like, hell yeah, we got him. They start to tune out, and that's when they quietly sign a new deal with Axon. And then this next part is an absolute doozy. Okay, in 2015, Jeffrey Epstein partnered with former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak to invest in a security tech startup called Reporty Homeland Security, now known as Carbon. Yes, Jeffrey Epstein and Israel is a part of this story, as they usually are. Because guess who owns Carbon now? That's right, Axon. November 2025, Axon bought Carbon as part of their quote-unquote new 911 network push. This new $625 million buyout of the emergency dispatch and communications tech firm is meant to help Axon craft a public safety ecosystem. Again, there's that buzzword, public safety. But this is crazy, is it not? Epstein could have made $100 million on secret police tech investment. Former Israel Prime Minister Ehud Barak helped the convicted sex offender quietly invest $1 million in a police tech startup in 2015. Its founder said the company, which is set to be acquired by Axon for $625 million, wasn't aware of Epstein's involvement. Sure. I think you think of it like this. Flock, on one side, represents this new wave of technocratic elites, the Mark Andreessens, Peter Thiels, and Sam Altmans of the world, who are in many ways now starting to control and decide what the rules of engagement are. And on the other side, you have Axon, which is kind of like the old guard, BlackRock, Wall Street, Epstein, Trump, who are saying, wait a minute, not so fast. We still want to rule over the world the way we used to. So is Flock being maybe set up as the public fall guy as they all shift to a different mass surveillance company? That is the theory that I'm presenting. But I think regardless of whether or not all of this is just a huge coincidence or not, the key takeaway for all of us has to be that we can't get hung up on Flock or any other individual company, but we have to fight against mass surveillance as a whole. That's the dig for today. Let me know what you guys think. Am I onto something with this theory? Sound off in the comment section below. And just to reiterate, again, I am against Flock. I support people fighting against that company, but I also do think that we need to be aware of other actors like Axon as well. You can support my journalism by going over to my website, 5149jameslee.com, sign up to become a member. There's also an option to give a one-time donation, no subscription necessary, or you can buy some merch as well. But if not, no worries at all. This information will always be free. Just do me a big favor and share this video, hype it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, turn on that notification bell so you can be the first to know when my next video drops. As always, thank you so much for your time, and I will see you in the next one.
I think what people are afraid of is the potential for a mass surveillance state. Once it's in place and the scope keeps creeping, or a national emergency comes in, then all of a sudden the rules change, and something that's we were told came into our communities for one reason is now used for a much more draconian reason.
I don't believe that what a flock camera is invasive. I got kind of freaked out at the beginning, which you're like, this is what it's like to feel your privacy invaded. This is how people feel about flock. And I'm like, I understand that's how people feel, but that's not what flock is. And so if you're open to debunking that with me in a fair way,
Sure.
I don't want your segment to be like flock wouldn't participate, because we have nothing to hide.
Sorry about that. Hit the wrong button. That's all right. I called her a nasally bitch. So I don't like people talking because there's always some smarmy shit, and they always seems like they're trying to fool you or some shit. But he's right. He's right. Just to nutshell it, Flock ain't the only one. There's other companies out there. And I saw a video. I can't remember where I saw it, but some company was thinking about trying to integrate Flock type cameras and surveillance equipment into traffic lights, right? For public safety, you know, quote unquote, take a drink. And you know, and what that means is like, so what that would mean is if you tried to take out that equipment, you'd be messing with municipal equipment, and that would be a crime. I mean, it's a crime anyway, but it would be like a bigger deal and more of a deterrence, or an attempt at a deterrence to keep you from taking that stuff out. But I found that interesting. That's the thing. That's one of the things I like about James Lee's videos. I highly recommend you subscribe to 5149 with James Lee. There is a video that he references in there. It's about 18 minutes long, but it does kind of a deep dive on not just Flock, but Axum and these other companies in the surveillance state. Highly recommend recommend that too. Yeah, I know. I screwed up. I hit the wrong button. All of a sudden I was hearing myself and I'm like, what the hell? I'm not supposed to be hearing myself. But anywho, right? Yeah. I mean, you might as well at this point. Who knows? Yes, that's his site there. And he does some really good. He's been doing more deep dive kind of mini documentaries, not only on this, but what's happening, you know, with Israel and whatnot. And I don't know. He's still allowed to do this. I guess he hasn't gotten the attention of the wrong people yet. So, you know, let's wrap James Lee in bubble wrap and Kevlar and make sure he's okay. So yeah, so that's your propaganda watch for today. And as always, you know, we think about our folks that need mutual aid. If you can, the links are down below in all our shows that we do. So if you can donate or share out the links for them, yeah, he really is doing impressive work. So, and I hope I'm not disappointed either. I'm always skeptical. Like I said, you know, when people do good work like that and you're like, how are they allowed to talk like this without, you know, some shit happening to them? But I'm scared. I mean, so far so good, but you know, ABS, always be skeptical, but don't be skeptical of our mutual aid folks. They really need your help. And if you know anybody who is in need of mutual aid, if they have a GoFundMe or any kind of fundraising apparatus going on, just let me know at extrabulla@gmail.com. Just email me, give me the particulars, like, you know, website and all that stuff, and we will add them to our other folks, because we strive to provide you information on these shows, but we also strive to help those in need in the space. So we really appreciate, though. Again, those links are down below in the description. That was weird. Why are you doing that stuff? Coming up this weekend, tomorrow night, Saturday night, of course, it's the Secret Show with yours truly, this crazy guy with the chickens. We got the crocus poster over here. Got Nays Garden here with his nips. Of course, Willie Bragg watching over us. We don't have Jesus candles around here. We have Willie Bragg pictures that help us out. And as always, admitting you're an asshole is the first step. So, and admitting that you like the Secret Show, you don't really have to do that. Just come watch us tomorrow night, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific time, or specific time, however you want to say it, on YouTube and Rumble and the Book of Faces. Quick reminder, if you want to support this show, we really appreciate it if you can like, share, and subscribe. I believe YouTube has been suppressing this channel extra recently, since I've called them out on their shenanigans for taking down one of my videos that was hurting absolutely nobody except their feelings, apparently. So we need all the help you can get. Word of mouth always helps. If you want to donate to this channel too, I appreciate it too. You can do super chats on YouTube for now anyway. And we have donation links down below in the description. We have CashApp, Venmo, what else we got? PayPal, that kind of stuff. Oh, you can become a Patreon too. We our newest Patreon. I want to thank Captain Peon. He is look at you money bags level, $5 a month. We appreciate that. And we appreciate any donations, big or small. But if you become a Patreon, we put your name up at the beginning of the show and shout you out. And we appreciate all the help that you can do for this show and keep it going, right? That's what we're trying to do, is help people, inform them, and help others as well. Finally today, folks, this is kind of disturbing. So Japan's using human refrigerators amid rising temperatures. Human refrigerators, or as we call them in the United States, the morgue. And there's like a bear. I think there's some things here. I don't want to do that. Does anyone let me do that? Okay, so there it is. There's this big ass refrigerator. You sit in there. Let me see if I can do this. So you get in there, you sit down, delicious, time to die, and then just in time for the autopsy, coming a few days later. Wait a minute. Okay, so you get the gist there. So a Japanese company is responding to the country's increasingly hot temperatures by unveiling a new human refrigerator. The Dohyman box, marketed as a human refrigerator, is roughly the size of a standard Japanese vending machine and can fit one person inside at a time. The temperature inside the box is kept at 59 degrees. I believe that would be Fahrenheit, not Celsius, because then that would you'd get cooked if it was 59 degrees Celsius. And once a person is inside, cold air is blasted at their head, neck, and shoulders and back. The box, developed by refrigeration and vending machine manufacturer SDRS, is marketed by industrial equipment supplier Trusco Nakayama for use at business and other public spaces amid the summer heat. And there's some, I didn't even see this. So you get in there, look, and then she's all like, look at this. I'm ready for death. The company said the boxes can help relieve symptoms of heat exhaustion by rapidly cooling bodies. It's being marketed for places where people work outside, such as construction sites. And you don't see the boxes, but you see like cooling tents, mist tents. You see those at like music festivals and other other kinds of festivals, where you go in and you get all this nice misty stuff and then maybe a fan's on or something like that. But this is just like, yeah, get in the fridge. They literally want you to chill out. And I was talking to my buddy Ed about this. I said, it's kind of the polar opposite well, polar. It's kind of the opposite of saunas, like they have, like my buddies in Minnesota. They have those up there, right? They have the saunas. Like it gets really cold up there, but you get in the sauna, you get a nice, you come in from the cold, you get nice and thawed out and stuff. Or you get in there beforehand, you get a nice heat build, build up your core temperature there, and you're able to deal with the cold a lot better, at least for a little while longer. But Japan, and their crazy shit. Anyway, I thought that was kind of funny. She's just sitting there. I am waiting to die. So yeah, that's it for me this week. With Morning Extra. I'll be back again next Friday morning, probably around noon Eastern. It seems to be a lot better fit for me. Noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific time. YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and Substack. Don't forget Secret Show tomorrow night at 11 p.m. 8 p.m. Pacific time on YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. And then I'll be back again Wednesday morning with the lovely and talented Laine Petersen for the Undercurrent. If you're not subscribed to the Undercurrent, please do so. That link is down below in the description too. A lot of goodies down there for you. We just passed 100 subscribers. We're up to 103 now. If you can subscribe, that would be awesome sauce, as we used to say, or some people used to say. And of course, and I believe Wednesday evening, Lucy from Blue Moon Red Wine, she's been kind of out of pocket for a while, but she's resurfaced on the tweeters now. She wants to talk about Argentina, so we'll be having a discussion about that. And yeah, I guess that's all the news that's fit to print. Thank you, everybody in the chat here live. Thank you to those who are watching this in the future when we have flying cars. I love each and every one of you. And as always, use your critical thinking skills. Stay out of the cults. Pundits are not journalists. All right. Scrutinize your media. Scrutinize your information sources. It's okay. Be skeptical, because fuckery is always afoot. And you may find out, okay, these people are cool. I can trust them. Or you may find out, wow, I didn't know they were backed by these people. This is some crazy shit. So, other than that, that's all I got. Take care of yourselves, and see you tomorrow night. Peace!
This is City Alpha 5! Woo!
Soon.